The story begins when the main character was small. The fortune teller predicted that when he grows up to wear a yellow mantle, there were various dishes with food on the table, there were a lot of appearance. The boy raised his hands up and exclaimed, joyfully pulling himself up, that life was so free. When a little boy grew up, after that he realized that his mother was right. A variety of messages began to come to the phone. Delivery began to accept orders, and he has a new reminder. The messages were the same all the time and insisted about the next reminders. Living so desperately every day, sooner or later Lin Chan will die. The protagonist thought about this with his eyebrows to his nose. The driver was driving a car and asked to drive rather, since he could crash into it. His truck got out of control suddenly. The boy looked in his direction, being very surprised. He did not have time to drive away as the accident occurred. People asked to call an ambulance, and the doctor noticed that the victim did not have a pulse. The doctor gave the team to his employees to take him to the morgue. But he cannot allow his brother's death, and he can save him. The protagonist was asked not to pretend to be dead and immediately wake up. When the boy opened his eyes, he answered the system that he had already woke up and asked her to stop hitting him. He sat in some room that glowed blue and asked where he was. He asked if he died. The system called him the master and explained that since his career in the delivery of food ended unsuccessfully, he launched a system of food delivery of the level of God. It will be associated with the system, and certification was completed. The protagonist asked if he would have to do delivery even if heaven collapses. The system has asked not yet to complete the tasks, and it will receive points from the system in the form of reward. The number of points will be displayed in the system and can be spent on acquiring various skills. The boy exclaimed that it was a nonsense. And what is the difference between all this and bad way of life? If the task is failed or he receives a bad review, then the owner Lin Cheng will immediately go to the 18th floor of hell. The process of delivery of God's level is successfully connected to Lin Chan. The system greeted its master. Introductory training is successfully completed, and it may begin to accept orders. The boy began to fall as if into the abyss, and bright blue lightning sparkled around him. When he woke up, he realized that he was in the morgue. The nurse took up her head by dropping the instruments when she saw a living corpse in front of her. The main character rang the phone and he received a starting gift set from the system. The birthday of the magic doctor. After taking this potion, it will eliminate the pain in the whole body and cure it, and also strengthen his body. An additional function will add beauty to him. Lin Chung asked if he could only see the system, and I decided that this was a very bad design. The main character knocked over a bottle of potion and thought that he liked it. Before he had time to drink the liquid, his gaze changed, and he felt in himself a lot of strength and energy. Lin Chung healed instantly, and all his wounds after the accident completely dragged on. The nurse screamed that he was definitely a serial killer. The main character looked towards the girl and explained that he feels great and would be in perfect order. She was very surprised and told the guy that she would call the doctor. When he remained, one system again made it clear to the main character that he could accept the order. He had a new order awaiting delivery and a certain address was indicated. Lin Chung realized that rich people live there, and his first order will be in this area. The boy said that rich people are usually the happiest, and he thinks after the rebirth of his luck increased. The main character pressed the button and accepted the first order that the system provided him. His rating immediately grew. The girl was sitting on an armchair with a phone in her hands. She played the game, not understanding how her opponent does it. She told him that if he does not know how to play, then he just doesn't play, and called it a stupid schoolboy in whom he would only shame. She can take the world, and then he will see. The enemy realized that she was originally a girl. Now it is not surprising that she plays so badly. He told the girl that this is a game only for men and asked to delete it and go further about his business. The girl rudely answered her opponent. She darkened from hunger, and the Pfizer of food had not yet come. She decided to send a message to the deliverer that he hurried, and to bring the order within 10 minutes. The deliverer was already near the main entrance to the residential complex. A man in shape told the guy that this is a private territory, and outsiders should not come here. The boy explained to the guard that he was an ordinary food deliverer. If he does not miss him, then he will have to pay the indemnity for not delivering food on time. The rich people who ordered his food had just sent a message that if he hurries, he would receive tips, and he asks to miss him. The guard continued to stand on his own, and said that many thieves and robbers pretend to be for food suppliers to get into the houses of influential people. Meanwhile, the girl continued to play. She took the phone in her hands and noticed that the ultas had finally accumulated, and she could play the maximum. The phone rang, and she was very angry because it was a good party. But at the most critical moment, they lost because of her. They said that she did not know how to play at all, and again asked her to delete this game. The girl decided to click the refusal button as she decided that this tortoise, was to blame for everything. The main character asked not to worry, and said that he would call her now. But there will be no one who ordered delivery to hang the phone. The boy called Miss X and explained that this was a food delivery. Then she asked him to just knock on the doorbell once he was a deliverier, and why should she call? Moreover, time has expired, and she will put him a bad review. The girl asked to prepare to buy a coffin and had already set him many bad reviews. Suddenly, he was writing off the phone, and a divine delivery system was launched. He was delighted that the system appeared again, and it gives the owner a new task. Why did he need invincibility in the game? He could not understand this. The guard wanted to call a psychiatric hospital. Lin Chan asked Miss Sia to wait a bit. If she refuses his delivery and puts him a bad review, then he will regret it all her life. He is the only one who can help her solve her very huge problem. Miss Shi could not understand how some food deliverer could help her with this shame. The girl let him in and said that he was not hoping for his trick, with which he wants to avoid a bad review of her. Lin Chung hoped that the system did not deceive him. Otherwise, in order to feed himself, he had to donate his blood for the rest of his life. Miss Shi was surprised that he decided to choose a character of the most similar to him. The main character decided that this girl had problems with the eyes, and it is obvious that the face of this character under a carbon copy was taken from him, and they are like twins. And she says that the characters are much more beautiful than him. Miss Shi showed the guy, that villain who just insulted her. She asked the deliverier to make the death of this guy as humiliating as possible. But Lin Cheng replied that he was his teammate, and how he could let him die. The enemy asked the protagonist whether he thinks that he would not remember him after the game today. Then the guy realized to whom she wanted death. Lin Chung exclaimed that they should help, not attack. They should just go out and change their weapons. But she took his hand and replied that she did not allow him to go out. If he leaves, he will not be able to meet with the villain who humiliated her. Lin Cheng noted that a small victory coefficient reduces the level of his lives. With so much, even if he collides with a low-ranking monster, he will have to retreat. The enemy called him cannon fodder and asked to follow them and not enter into battle. Miss Sia asked him not to dare to retreat and stand aside. He must humiliate him for insulting her with various rudeness. If he is a simple food deliverer and he needs money, then she will give him only that he smear him into powder. The enemy asked the protagonist what he was doing now. The boy replied that he was certainly hiding, and a lady for such a ballast as he is normal. Lin Chung noted that Miss C equipped the characters with such bad equipment, therefore putting on his problem for anyone. If he had not hidden, then what is the likelihood that he would not die from one arrow? The girl agreed with him, but asked to remember that if he dies, she would put him the worst review of delivery. Lin Cheng replied that he was sure that he could impress her. The player told the main character that since he was doing nothing but he had an almost complete graph of lives, then let him blame him for dying together. He was asked why he was hiding because this baby will not save him, and he must fight himself. The boy exclaimed that he did not want to die. Meanwhile, the protagonist had 100% progress of accumulation of force, and he gained invincibility. Lin Chan was delighted with this and realized that he was finally accomplished, and the system helps him. He immediately pressed the button and rushed forward with a speed. The guys were shocked that he fired them with fire. They found themselves in a circle, and around the bright flame of fire in the form of a ring glowed around. The opponents began to scream and fell to the ground by dusting with bright yellow fire. The main character was on the same knee with a weapon in his hands. He was ahead of his enemies and defeated them. The girl was very surprised and asked him really so good in this game. Lin Cheng replied that yes, but he asked her not to worry about because the most interesting is still ahead. The enemy asked the guy if he was the owner of this account and asked to give him back to the owner. The girl gave the team to her comrade to kill him and laughed. Lin Chung exclaimed, looking at the enemy that he had guessed. The enemy laughed and said that it was simple. He had already played one game with that inept misfortune, and after that, it could easily determine it or not her. Probably gave the account to the booster, and she went to do her homework. The girl wanted to tear his head for such words. Suddenly, the player was killed by a low-ranking little magic lizard. Miss Sia exclaimed that this is a wonderful job. 15 minutes after the game, the girl said, looking at the protagonist, that his technique was simply magnificent. Lin Cheng asked in this case to put him a good review for delivery. The girl agreed, but asked to start completing one task. Lin Cheng realized that the system gave him the skills of invincibility in the game, and did not deceive him. In order to activate the skill of invincibility, You need to concentrate your consciousness as thoroughly as possible. Now a special game will begin, and he is more than sure that they will switch to them with the whole crowd, since he asks not to get into his arm. When the game began, the crowd of people really rushed at him to break into pieces. The main character squeezed his sharp weapons and it lit up with a bright, burning flame. He put the weapon in front of him and killed one of his opponents with one blow. After that, 2 consecutive killings occurred. The enemy told his older brother that they were here, after which 3 consecutive killings occurred. A teammate and without them can do as if a loner. He is the strongest warrior, as the guys noticed. 4 consecutive killings occurred. Their team was called the Team of Cowards, since one is puffed up for all. 5 consecutive killings occurred thanks to the main character. Miss Shi was very happy and exclaimed that it was a victory. She ran to Lin Chan and hugging him called her teacher. The girl asked to take her as a student. If he does not accept her as a student, then she will put him a bad review for delivery. The main character replied that they did not agree so. He could not understand why she was changing the terms of the contract and called it the devil. Miss Sia went to the guy and asked to repeat, even hugging him. Lin Chung thought that he was tormented all night, so he was very tired. The main character grabbed the girl with a deft movement of her hand so that she did not even expect this. The boy exclaimed that he would no longer allow himself to blackmail and pressed an excellent review in her phone. Miss Shi called her teacher Byaku and said that she remembered him. Someday, it will accurately order his home food. If the next time he refuses to teach her, then she will put bad reviews to him all her life. Lin Cheng decided that no matter how much she put his bad reviews because of her habit, but he does not think that she would do this. Last night, the girl did not let him go by the hand. Lin Chan wanted to leave and said Miss Sia that he had already played a bunch of games and told her all the features. But even so, she still did not want to let her go. The boy thought about, having sighed heavily that getting a good review was really too difficult. Suddenly, the system congratulated the owner on the first successful task. Lin Chung asked the system not to sneak up in the future to him, and not to scare so sharply. He already with difficulty survived after the accident, and would not want to lean back because of some heart attack. The system immediately agreed and asked if the guy would ask why she came here. She is here in order to give him the opportunity to try his luck in the lottery. The main character pressed the confirm button, and the system reported the skill of the sounds of nature. The sounds of nature are the highest degree of owning musical singing skills. Owning this skill can sing something, and to the core will affect the listener. Lin Chung decided that this winning looks absolutely useless, and why he cannot click on the options of lower tasks. The system explained that above the highest task are tasks of a higher level. They are not suitable for a beginner. When he completes the level, increases the level, and will be able to obtain permission to complete other tasks. Suddenly, the guy came to the phone a new order, and it was necessary to accept him soon. Lin Chung, taking the phone in his hands, read the destination. It was a White Swan Club. The guests were indoors and many people were sitting on sofas at the tables. The guy went inside with the girl and exclaimed that everything was already here. He decided to introduce this lady to everyone. The guy explained that this is one of his girls and her name is Main Yun. Others considered her a beauty. They told the young Mr. Zhang that all his fans would be upset because of such a competitor. He has a really pretty daughter. In law, Main Yun asked him to remove his hands from her and asked when she had already managed to become his girlfriend. Zhang replied that his aunt insisted on this in particular, and she knows that their marriage is a prerequisite for families' cooperation. Therefore, sooner or later, he would have to announce that they are meeting. He decided to introduce her to his other friends. Does she really want to spoil the reputation of his family? Zhang, one of the guys, went to Miss Meng Yun and asked why she was silent. This red wine has been produced in France, and it must try it. The girl thanked and told the guy that she would not drink alcohol. But Zhang went up to her and explained that the young Mr. Shan is his very good friend, although he knows that she is shy. However, she is his girlfriend. Therefore, his friends and her friends. She should not refuse to treat their friends. If she does not want to drink wine, then let her drink juice. Main Yun thanked him and said that she had already ordered ordinary water. Zhang began to threaten in response that if she does not drink him, then when they return he will tell about everything his aunt. Maybe she will even change their minds that they provide her family with such chic conditions for cooperation. Before he had time to finish, as the girl immediately knocked over the glass, Zhang hugged her by the shoulders and laughed at him with a huge clever. Suddenly, another friend with his girlfriend appeared on the threshold. When he entered, he called Main Yun with a precious daughter of the main family. He complimented her, saying that she looks very good. the girl who said with him that she had a stupid puppet face. Such a girl is beautiful but not romantic. Zhang does not love her and he likes her purely because of his appearance. She turned to Miss Man Yun. The girl said that she heard that not so long ago she was recognized as the most famous talented miss of the city of Wujian. Can she dance something for them or sing some song? Man Yun recognized her former Zhang. She has always been so and always tried to change the atmosphere, make it more inflated. Man Yun shy and pulled her dress to her knees, exclaimed that she would not do this. She got up from the couch and explained to this impudent lady that she was not a girl Zhang Jiang. Then the lady was very surprised at this, and blushing looked at her with a surprised look. Before they had time to finish how the main character appeared in the room, he greeted and showed a package with an order. He explained to the guys that the order has already been delivered. Man Yun immediately approached the guy and thanked him for coming. She carefully looked into his eyes, and her face was filled with a pink blush. She came closer to him and asked not Lin Chen Li. She took his hand and asked why he was here. The boy changed his gaze and covered with drops of sweat that he was the end. He did not understand how such a situation could accept such a turn and sat down next to the girl on the sofa. A few minutes ago, he thought that he graduated from school and decided that he would never meet this demon again. But fate pushed him with this demoness again. Lin Chung turned and said goodbye to the girl, explained that he also has other orders, so he was leaving. The boy wished all the good girl. The system warned the owner that behavior in this way could lead to a decrease in the pace of work. Lin Cheng exclaimed that he was not to blame, and the system does not know how cruel this girl was when she was in high school. She was the most popular but actually a tyrant in a skirt. Lin Cheng recalled school times when everyone thought that Men Yun was the most innocent and kind girl in the high school. But in fact, she subjected many guys without causing her persecution. The guys asked what happened here. One of them replied that I heard that yesterday the teacher forbade the best friend of Man Yun to skip lessons at school. And today, the Yun family bodyguard beat him. Lin Chung asked the system really, she wants to send him to the right death. If he remains, then if he does something wrong, they will kill him exactly. The system replied that their task is to deliver food. Therefore, it does not matter how difficult the task is or which person faces them. They must meet him with a smile and leave him in any case, if he does not decide with her as it should. Then she decides him. Man Yun asked the boy in order Li and why he has such a pale face. Her words and the view of the protagonist were completely different. She seemed to ask if he wanted to escape or seeking death. Lin Chung began to back off to the door and said that he was all right with him, quickly retreating back. Zhang went to the girl and asked who it was. Do they know each other? Lin Chung answered the guy that he did not know her. But Man Yun said that she knew him. The main character was sharply corrected and said that it would be strange if he did not know the one who was the most beautiful girl at school did not study in the same class as he. Zhang realized that they were classmates and said that Man Yun studied at the Academy of Aitan in the class of Zhongdan. Only, how did it happen that a graduate of the Noble Academy and the best class of the Academy turned out to be a food as a food? Man Yun stood up for him and said that it doesn't matter what kind of profession, prestigious or not, the main spiritual development and education of a person. Lin Cheng could not understand how such a word could say. Has she changed and have become a new person? Lin Cheng apologized and said that she wants to talk with her old school friend about the old days. Zhang replied that in this case there is nothing to be done, and since they are old school friends, then he can stay. The guy thought to himself that he was a very strange food deliverer and came here in order to compete with him for this girl. Lin Chung thought that in this way he remained in the company of these people. They are almost not familiar with her and why he needs Man Yun at all. The girl approached them and said that the graduate of the best class of the Noble Academy was the most ordinary food deliverer. The academies are not entitled to be called the best academy of China. This is not only because of this guy, but also because of the girl. Man Yun asked not to dare to slander and spoil the reputation of her native academy. Then the girl asked to prove to her the opposite and show her amazing skills. She was sure that her performance would be bad, and she would put her in place. Lin Chung decided that if you look at Man Yun's face, she did not allow this girl to shame the reputation of her native academy. Then she considers to protect the good name of the academy with her duty. Lin Chung got up from the sofa and exclaimed in defense of the girl that all the students at the Academy of Aitan were talented people and he was one of the worst graduates. But even so, he can still show them what the worst student of the academy is capable of. The protagonist noticed that Man Yun had some kind of depressed look. If you think about it, if he does not sing well, then she will definitely put him a bad review for delivery. By the way, he was very lucky, and he did not expect that such a useless skill would come in handy so soon. Lin Cheng took the microphone in his hands and began to sing a song. Beautiful notes poured out of his mouth. He sang just wonderful. One of the guests was the singer's singing is very familiar. Main Yun, listening to the guy, thought that she did not expect Lin Cheng sing so well. She could not understand what was happening to her, and why she feels a slight dizziness clutching her head with her hands. The girl had a very strange feeling, and her heart suddenly began to knock very quickly. The main character continued to sing, and the guests listened with a trepidation, smiling joyfully. Meanwhile, Zhang was very angry and squeezed a glass with a drink tightly in his hand. The guys could not understand why he seemed to them so familiar, continuing to peer into the protagonist. The girl exclaimed that she did not expect him to sing so well, like a seductive siren. And if he participated in the show, Hua Go Ga Go would become a winner. Main Yun was very hot, and through her body everything was hotter and hotter from such a beautiful singing. The guests began to shout that it was just fine. The guys said that it was very cool. Zhang got angry and exclaimed that they gathered around the poor man and he was so beggar that he had never even been at concerts. But the guys said that this performance is really amazing. Lin Cheng called this guy arrogant and said that singing in this way is already difficult, and he still does not like something. But he is right, and he really was never at concerts. Main Yun suddenly raised her hands on the keys. She blushed and began to drain the stream of sweat on her face. The main character could not understand what was happening to her and began to approach her. He caught the girl in time and exclaimed that she was burning. Main Yun asked him to take her from here as soon as possible. Zhang suddenly began to stop him and asked where he was going with his girlfriend. The boy replied that she seems to have a fever, and he was going to take her to the hospital. But Zhang, after he poured a drink in his face, said that she was his girlfriend, and only he could touch her. Main Yun explained to the main character that he was not her boyfriend, and asked to take her from here again. Zhang raised his hand to hit her in the face, and exclaimed that the well-being of her family was still entirely dependent on him. Before he could hit the girl as the main character grabbed his hand, pushing away from her, Lin Cheng exclaimed that she said that he did not want him to touch her. He was seriously angry and blushed with anger. The protagonist hit this scoundrel with a palm in the face, calling him a non-insignificance. Suddenly, the system allowed the owner to get a new task and deliver Main Yun to a safe place. Zhang called the boy a corpse and called his comrades to arrange a battle for survival. They grabbed wooden bats. One of them said that he was just an ordinary little chicken and he could cope with him alone. Lin Cheng laughed back and asked them to attack the whole crowd. He wants to see if they will cope with him. The big man who wanted to soak the first tried to hit his struggle with his fist with all his might. But the main character grabbed his hand and he screamed in pain because the veins jumped out on his hand. Lin Cheng immediately knocked him over his reception with a deft movement. He twisted his hand and tossed it to the floor. The guy screamed even more and began to shout that he was very painful. The rest of the guys began to approach the main character and fell on him together. Lin Cheng clenched his fist and hit one of the opponents with all his might. The second he managed to hit the leg with a deft movement. Opponents could not understand why this pitch of food is so incredibly strong. Zhang got in earnest and asked all his comrades to throw himself on the attack. The system decided to help its owner and the goal was no more than 10 opponents. A passive Rambo skill was activated. The system informed its owner that now he could fight as he wishes and create real arbitrariness. Lin Cheng answered the system that she helps him a lot. He clenched his fists and began to scatter everyone in a row with lightning movements. He began to make techniques that he never knew thanks to the gift of his system. He threw many guys over himself. They all hit the floor with huge cones on the forehead. Zhang could not say a word except you. Then the main character asked what he pokes, and if he does not want him to drag him, then let him not interfere under his feet. Lin Cheng took the girl by the waist so that she would not fall and head for the exit. One of the guys exclaimed that he remembered who he was. Zhang went up to him and grabbing his phone asked to let him rush in him. He said that this guy was too familiar with him. Is this not the delivery teacher of the offspring of some kind of rich family? It seems that he became very popular in just one night thanks to his skills in the game. Zhang exclaimed Lin Chan that he would definitely make him regret that he humiliated him. He broke the phone of his comrade who only recently bought. Meanwhile, the main character was already approaching the girl to the hotel. She was already barely moving. Main Yun explained to the guy that her clothes are very uncomfortable. Lin Cheng replied that she had a fever and he had to take her to the hospital and why she rests on him with her breasts. Why did she bring him to this hotel? A guy with a camera appeared from somewhere and said that the daughter of the main family came to the hotel for a secret meeting with some outsider. apparently for the sake of money. The young master of the Zhang family will be furious if he finds out about it. Tomorrow he is going to announce a grandiose news. Lin Cheng was afraid that the brain of this girl would melt and needed to bring her to her senses. He led her to the hotel and saw a pool with cold water in front of him, deciding to save her. The main character threw the girl into this pool, after which he decided that he was too impulsive. He turned Miss Man Yun into a dog falling into the water, in accordance with her character at school. Right now she should torture him to death. The boy asked the girl not to beat him in the face. Retribution overtook fast delivery from the Gugu too quickly, but Man Yun was not going to beat him, and clinging to his body asked to help her. She explained to the guy that she was pumped with drugs. The girl could not understand what he was going to do with her, and sighing asked not to touch her. Lin Cheng began to bind her and asked to lie from the world. To himself, he thought that he would abandon her here, in the hospital. As he could lose all the authority, he is not yet ready to lose everything that he has. But everything is too difficult, even for a good review. The system said that his reliable assistant on the line, and you need to use bonus points if he wants. Lin Cheng exclaimed that she scared him again, and asked to stop unexpectedly to appear and disappear like a ghost. After that, the main character asked the system whether she had an idea, to which she replied that here, in order to help, strong mood swings of this subject and a high probability of refusing to order were found. This pill can eliminate the effect of drugs in the body of the subject. 100 points that he earned at the last mission can be used. Lin Cheng replied that free cheese happens only in the mousetrap and what assistant he is after that. These drugs are quite strong, or you need to use a pill, or it can sacrifice your body. The boy asked the system to subtract glasses, as they say, to treat the like. The system thought that this choice is really expensive for him, looking at the protagonist. When the boy gave the girl a pill, she began to recover. Man Yun grabbed her head with her hands and asked what happened to her. She had a very dizzy her head. Lin Chan went up to the girl and, smiling, noticed that she had sobered up. The girl smiled back and exclaimed that he helped her again. She never thanked him for leaving her from there. Man Yun asked her to tell her what he wants, and she would try to fulfill his request. The protagonist showed her his phone, and said that he could get a highly paid job, and there is no need to worry about it, just needs to put him 5 stars. She became interested in whether he really wants this, and the assessment of him is more important than money and good work. Lin Cheng squeezed his fist and exclaimed that he really likes working as a deliverier. The girl said that he had to fight with a large number of bodyguards in order to save her, and it looks like this assessment is also important to him as his life. Lin Cheng noted that the intuition of this woman is too accurate. He told the girl that in this case he would go. He put her order on the table. Lin Cheng asked the next time to stay away from these villains. Not every day will be lucky to meet nearby such a wonderful food deliverier. Man Yun considered him strange. After all, he helped her so many times but did not ask for anything in return. Even the opposite, continues to help. The girl said, thinking that this person was more interesting than she thought. The protagonist reached his room and passed out after such fatigue. Before he had time to rest, as Miss Shi woke him early in the morning and asked the master to come more likely. Someone in the game challenged her, but the main character asked her to simply admit his defeat. The girl exclaimed, laughing, that she knew that he would refuse. That's why she ordered 1,000 dishes for removal, 100 of which he would deliver to her. Every time he teaches her to kill someone, she leaves him a positive review. The main character was very surprised, because even if she has money not all the same to spend on games, Lin Cheng was already sitting behind the monitor screen near Miss Sia. She was also completely in the game. The correspondence began, and the opponents asked whether this is the strongest among people the courier that helped the last time. The same girl plays like a vegetable. Lin Cheng said Miss Shi that it turns out that she is not only rich but also famous. The girl replied that when the master went on the internet for the last time, she had long let her claws on the internet. The 4-eyed golden spirit said that today he was going to put it in place in front of the millionth audience, since the NUB should go with the flow and run away at the sight of him. Lin Cheng asked how she was able to provoke an evil spirit so that he challenged a newcomer in the game. The girl replied that initially she was a special guest at the competition of the Divine Front with a firearm. But this man, named the Evil 4-eyed Spirit, did not like that he helped her, and he challenged. She will gladly record the video how they will shut up him with their skill precisely for this reason. They should now defeat the little things in order to stay in the final. Xia asked the master to teach her to play well so that she would defeat the evil spirit. It is easier to take his body and stick her face to her nape as Volan de Moor, if it does not find better equipment. Suddenly, a guy with an automaton appeared and exclaimed that he had finally found them, and had to sweat a little. He told the evil spirit that they were here, but the main character quickly reacted to grab the weapon. He committed his first murder, and the enemy was plunged by a bloodied falling to the ground. A cunning leash, and it was very good. He still has a little skill. Xia hugged Lin Chan when she saw that he really killed him, and for this, she promised to immediately put a good review. She spoke about an 8-fold sight and a magnificent helmet. There were so many things in this backpack. The main character asked the girl to be on the alert, as this is a teammate in the command of a 4-eyed evil spirit. Having killed it, they immediately issued their location. The boy asked the girl to go to bed immediately. Before them were several opponents with weapons in their hands. They crept unnoticed. Xia said that they had come so quickly and almost fell right in her head. Equipment is spoiled and they definitely run. The girl asked the master to cover her while she would shoot. Lin Cheng asked her to wait a bit, because it seems to him that something was wrong with their team. She asked what he proposes to do, because the enemy would follow the door. Lin Cheng asked her not to ask, but simply to follow him, and they were near the wall when they began to shoot at them. Miss Xia exclaimed that she was very scared and almost died, but fortunately she had a helmet on her head. Lin Cheng thought that for that guy to win them is easier, because he is a cheater. The main character began to call the evil 4-headed spirit. He asked if the guy considers this game honest, how to understand that he found a team comrade who uses cheats. Although they are cheaters, he has a system and a cost in which cheats will come in handy in all cases. The enemy replied that if he does not know how to play normally, he is now calling him a cheater. Lin Cheng asked how he would then explain the fact that he was able to get in the way, if from the position that he chose impossible to see them. The enemy laughed in response and said that he would stop powdering people's brains and carry all nonsense, and simply admit that he was afraid of experienced players. Lin Cheng exclaimed that he would now show them how to play. Meanwhile, the main character's system was synchronized. Miss Shi began to throw her smoke grenades, to which the guy asked what she was doing. The girl explained that he said that they were cheaters and so they could not see them. They can hide in another place and wait when toxic smoke will act on them. The main character explained to the girl that they now also did not see them, and when he could say that he could not defeat them, Miss Shi, frightened, asked what to do now. Lin Cheng asked to take a pan and hide, trying not to die. The girl did it because she did not have another way out, and she began to wait for the further actions of the protagonist. The system told the owner that its equipment has immunity to damage from cheaters for another 45 seconds, and the owner must use every second. Lin Cheng decided that it was time to show them his real skill, and went on the attack. The enemy said that this one was annoying. The second noticed that they used smoke at the wrong time. Spectators already doubt, and cannot be made to understand that he uses cheats. The comrade said that another of the team went upstairs and blocked the passage, so that in any case the game would end in 5 minutes. And why then worry, because he had already noticed him. The guy put his weapon directing him to the goal. He was satisfied, and decided that now the game could be finished. The evil spirit expertly shoots from the blind zone, and very soon, all China will see how the evil spirit learned these noobs. The guys could not understand where the deliverer is now, as if he had disappeared. The leader asked the guys what was the matter. They did not expect that the main character would be upstairs, and he was already approaching with weapons in his hands directly to them. He really was above his heads, and had already begun to shoot his weapons at his opponents. He decided to get rid of the problematic and shot at him by committing a double murder. He killed an evil 4-eyed spirit with a machine gun. It was completely unexpectedly, since the deliverer shoots faster than a 4-eyed evil spirit. Now he began to doubt that the deliverer plays honestly. The guy went to the main character and exclaimed that he had just foam. Lin Cheng replied that he would not even take him to the Navy with such and such a reaction, and he is the best in this game. The system said that the effect of immunity has ended and it must cope on its own. Lin Cheng decided that it was necessary to retreat, and the system was overwhelming the whole thing in time. Now, even at the risk of being revealed, he must defeat this deliverer. Otherwise the evil spirit no longer recognizes his strength. He still hopes that she will make him popular, and he will make a profit. It was very exciting, because only 1 second would decide who would win and who would lose. The main character wanted to win this match in any way and aimed. A strong explosion occurred and fire flew towards the enemy. But towards Lin Cheng, a shot was also released, on which he managed to react. The enemy could not understand how it was possible, and the helmet flew off his head. Lin Cheng killed D'Ancelo, and it was a triple murder. The protagonist won, and it was rather not easy. Miss Shi was very delighted with this victory. Lin Cheng replied that it was possible not to worry about, because he was thinking that she had died. The boy asked how she survived it all, and the girl began to explain. She hid behind the door that the enemy did not notice, and then she grabbed a frying pan without any words and slapped him with all her might on the head. She was called Chosen Heaven, and after that went to the desired zone, but he had already defeated everyone. Lin Cheng said that she finally achieved at least some progress, and said that he was very happy. Miss Shi asked why he jerked her ear so hard, and why he uses his position to take revenge on her. The boy replied that he killed 3, so he asked her to hurry and put good reviews. But the girl asked him to wait since she wanted to see how the stream passed, and in accordance with him to decide what to do. But what happened to them were driven into a corner, and a whole crowd of sofa troops scolds and insults them. It was in the direction of opponents, and he asks to comment and write insults to Miss Shi. They have already completely insolent decided by the amazed enemy. His comrades agreed with him because they are very strong and how they could lose. He decided to expose them, because such a dirty player should be outside the game. One of the insulting said that he would go to complain, and maybe this is the deliverer with inexplicable power is also a cheater. The enemy told the girl that she specifically found cheater for this game, and asked to clean out. Xia called him in response to a 4-eyed scoundrel who could not admit his defeat, and which of his dogs saw the master of cheetah. The protagonist approached the girl and asked if she wanted to go more important. Just good reviews. He asked the 4-eyed as to resolve all misunderstandings. Is it possible to consider yourself a master if he complains about the girl? If he wants to scandal so much, then he offers to play one more time. He offers such a dispute. If he proves that D'Angelo does not use cheats, he will accept any of his condition. If it turns out that he is not a cheater, then they will apologize to the whole audience. He will also have another request for him, and if he was scared, he may apologize right now. The enemy exclaimed that they would play and see who is still a coward here. Half an hour has passed. Finally, the admins made an ad, and now they will find out who is actually a cheater. At the request of most users of the network, they watched this match, and during the game, a cheater was discovered that violated the rules of the game, and his name D'Angelo. The strongest detachment among people passed checks, and they become the winners of this match, and receive 600,000 gold. The main character called his system and said that he wants to get a skill. The system replied that he had just received 3 good reviews, so he could get 3 skills. Lin Cheng said that he wants sofa troops to receive a stunning blow to his face. When the troll on the internet goes on persons in relation to the owner, then anti-troll is applied to it. This is automatically delivered 10 blows on the face. The enemy could not understand why he beats himself in the face, because he was very painful. He asked to stop immediately because he could not control himself. The guy told D'Angelo that he had been deceiving him, and said that he was not cheater, and he would not forgive him even if he beat him now. This is called not to be afraid of a strong opponent, but beware of an unreliable ally. You like to play know how to play. When he asked him to apologize, the guy apologized and said that, having no evidence, he accused him of cheating and was wrong. The main character smiled and said that they were taking his apologies, and now about his demand. The enemy began to listen, and when he found out that Lin Chan exclaimed him that he refused and what kind of requirement it was. Meanwhile, the guy handed his comrade the official list of those invited to the final, among whom was the name Lin Chan. The deliverer participates in the competition, and the guys decided that admins are not in their mind. 3 days later, the final day of the Battle of the Gods of the War began, and the protagonist picked up the phone. Miss Shi asked the master to let him, but the boy asked her and the evil spirit to wait at the entrance as he would be in 20 minutes. Xia told Lin Chan that there is no need to be afraid of professional players, because you can't run away before the battle. Does she really want to say that she wants to win the championship? So he agreed to take part with him and teach this stupid girl. Xia answered the guy that she won yesterday actually, and he teaches so-so, not what the master is also called cool. Lin Cheng, looking in front of him, exclaimed that something seemed to happen. He decided to go to look and hung up. The girl asked the master what happened. The guy did not have time to answer, and said that the game would begin in an hour, so he does not need to be late. Miss Xia told the guy that he just wants to participate in this finale, and why he was not ashamed to pretend to be as if it had made him. Then he replied that she was not stupid, and asked to simply not intervene during the finals. Meanwhile, on the street, someone's grandfather lay unconscious on the ground, and his grandson cried and asked what happened to him. The main character approached this crowd and asked the dude what happened. The guy replied that he did not know, But this old man suddenly fell and probably wants to deceive. The second asked not to come too close as you need to be careful with scammers. The boy continued to cry and explained Lin Chan that his grandfather suddenly grabbed his heart and fell. The boy replied that this was a heart attack due to shock. He asked to immediately call an ambulance and asked if there is a doctor or a nurse who could provide first aid to this person. Do they not know that a person can die from a heart attack? No one even bore to call an ambulance? People from the crowd began to ask who this guy is. Lin Cheng asked the system to immediately go out because he needed first aid and medicine skills. The system replied that he could not unlock his skill at will outside the assignment. Rights limit human life more important than violation of the rules. The system immediately agreed and said that she was the one who made him his master. Therefore will make the salvation of life an additional task, and he has a chance to get a reward. Lin Chung asked to stop saying stupid things and give him something to save a person. The system immediately obeyed, and the guy's hand lit up in blue. He received the skill of rejuvenation and approached the old man. When he brought his hand over the body of the old man, those around him immediately looked at him in fright. The grandson shouted that his grandfather had finally woke up and ran joyfully to him. The old man asked the protagonist to save him. Lin Cheng replied that since he woke up, he ran as he had an urgent business and an ambulance would help him. Miss C began screaming on the phone to the master that the match would begin 15 minutes later and asked where he was and why she did not answer calls. The guy also decided that the protagonist was mocking him and immediately said goodbye. Lin Chung tried to explain that he was delayed because of something important, but they asked what could be more important than the final and whether he knows that all players and tens of thousands of spectators are waiting for him right now. The old man went to the guy and asked where this urgent business was located. He explained that he could help him. Miss Shi could not understand why it had not yet begun. Isn't the game in 10 o'clock and why nothing happens? Why in this team there is not enough another person and who dared to be late for the official final? Suddenly Lin Cheng appeared, and everyone recognized the deliverer of which was invited to the competition. They decided that there should be some kind of mistake in such an important competition, and he had pushed. Spectators began to expel the guy from this competition. But the man in the sun's glasses exclaimed that this guy is a hero and he saved their master. Lin Cheng said that the match will begin soon, so he will go to the rest. He thanked the man with glasses for leaving him and asked to give him to the old man so that he would recover. The man immediately handed the boy a business card that the master asked to give him. He explained that he could come to him if he has any difficulties in the future. This is gratitude for the salvation of his life. Having passed the card, the man said goodbye to the main character. The player was very surprised that he was 40 kilometers from here and ended up here in 15 minutes. Lin Cheng replied that it was the fastest car in his life. It was a rather interesting trip, especially when all cars are inferior to the road. In principle, you can drive to red. Miss Sia told the guy that this man said something about saving life and how everything turned out so. The leader's voice was interrupted by their conversation. The man greeted the guys in the final competition of the Divine Front with a firearm. Li Chen, the guy, the deliverer, the first candidate for the departure. He helped an elderly person with a heart attack, so he lingered a little, and he is very proud that they have such a participant. And now the competition begins, and they will close the next two teams. The red team that took first place in the competitions of whose leader W and the head of the blue team is the deliverer Lin Cheng, so that everything is true for them to have random players for both teams, which will add difficulties to already famous players. A variety of players participate in this competition, but only one team will win a prize of 660,000 yuan, and soon they will find out which one. The guy exclaimed that he had long wanted to fight these players, and the girl wanted to show everyone his current skill. Lin Chung said that he was just a deliverer who wants to win this prize. That's all, and entered the game. The man asked not to worry since their team would not be so aggressive for some time. He asked to try to survive as long as possible to give the audience to have fun. Lin Cheng wanted to quickly finish, get a prize and return to the delivery of food. The guy who was in another team asked to know his capabilities, and they were invited only to the fun of the audience. Do they really think they can win? The guys asked not to be so arrogant since they are strong enough. All people looking down at the master will receive a fist in the face. Opponents asked to show their strength. Inya exclaimed that she felt all the way as if someone was pursuing them and they were never behind. The four-eyed evil spirit said that it seemed to him, and there should not be a deception in an official competition. Moreover, some of them climb. Lin Chung said that formally outsiders in the team complicate the game and professional team, but who does not want a prize and such a lot of money. He asked the new comrade in the command of Li. The guy replied that he was right, but their team was too strong to suffer from others and laughed. Miss Sia exclaimed that they say true, and they will be able to get everything they only want. After all, now they have a pretty good equipment. The protagonist gave the command to hide in the grass and start shelling, not allowing them to get closer. Suddenly, a comrade with weapons who began to shoot, and Lin Cheng asked what he was doing now. They are nearby and the guys attracted their attention. He asked the evil spirit to shoot right in the head, and the boy aimed. A shot occurred and the main character also pressed the trigger. The audience shouted that it was very cool and that team had 20 killed. This team of lovers can really overturn the professional team. They also calmly slipped away from professionals, which is a good job. But there is no need to boast in advance because the lovers team are quite cool. A professional team compared to them is such. But what kind of garbage situation this was just, and they burned the opposition of the detachment. The player told the girl that if Lin Cheng had not shot an enemy before, they would be dead. Xia replied that he was right, and it was difficult to just listen to the instructions of her master. The comrade apologized for hastening with a shot. Lin Cheng asked the guys first to find a car. Most likely, the professional team has already killed almost all outsiders, and they will fall over the big bridge. He explained that you need to go to a large bridge to fill up a professional team. The main character climbed somewhere high, and the girl told the master that they could hide here. But the enemies would come. Lin Cheng explained that the bridge is a road on which it will have to go anyway. They should just listen to his instructions and everything will be fine. Their player said that he thinks to eat one problem. The fact that they are of professional players does not matter much. They just stand so casually, right in the middle. Any 100 meters from them who is fine with shooting can kill them with a shot in the head. Opponents said that this is a serious game with friends and do not spend their money and time. The team of this deliverer is so boring, you just need to leave here. Lin Cheng exclaimed that they would come here and they would decide everything quickly. They will learn a specific strategy later. The boy asked his guys not to worry since he guarantees that everything would be fine. The game comrade decided to show what he would show how he can play. They do not even think that he is actually a secret agent of another team. The guy told another team that Lin Cheng plans to fight a professional team on the bridge and asked to come to arrange an ambush. Just let them wait when they begin to fight on both sides, and he will move away and receive their equipment. The main character stood behind him and asked Li. He finished. The guy replied that he would finish soon and asked not to worry. Lin Cheng called him a small crook and asked him to have what to say before his death. The guy was very scared and asked what they were planning. Xia exclaimed that the master was right and he was a terrible person. The comrade said that it is not surprising that he shot before that very strange, and from the very beginning gave them information. Lin Cheng exclaimed that he had finished his career as a stupid agent and let his soul rest in peace. Other guys could not understand how this guy was killed. There should be a professional team and Team Lin Chan now fight. Well, it doesn't matter because it is important that you need to go to the bridge and win the competition. The host said that they are not afraid not only to fight a professional team, but also to kill spies in their team. Their blue team is really unusual, and the performance promises to be interesting. The deliverer not only challenged a professional team, but also figured out dark affairs in his, Xia said, turning to the master, that he had long understood that this person was an agent, and why he had to wait when he would reveal their position, and not immediately kill. Lin Cheng explained that now in the game 5 more teams in addition to them and the task team. Basically, everyone should go through the bridge in search of Luda, and he plans to fight 5 teams right here. This is a cruel male struggle, and they will try to do everything to win in it. Opponents could not understand what they were doing. The main character began to attract them with his hand, and the enemy decided that this guy also provokes them. But still, what he does and needs to shoot to defeat, since it is so arrogant. This game will end quickly with an outcome understandable for everyone. The guy with a weapon in his hands decided to make it clear who was a professional and aimed. There was a strong shot, and the main character was right in the center of this salvo. He began to use the skill 100% of bullets. The skills in the game increase. Reflexes to the limit of the physical capabilities of the owner and the time of action are 10 seconds. Whether a skirmish has already begun, the guys also decided to shoot and kill how many opponents could. The main character began to evade the bullets that flew in his direction. Opponents were very surprised. They could not understand what kind of manipulations it was, and how he dodged all the bullets flying into it. He had not seen this before, and how this is possible. Suddenly, before Lin Chan, an adversary with a weapon appeared. and exclaimed that he would not be dodged from such a close distance. Then the protagonist gave the team to his guys to go out and start battle. Opponents were completely surrounded, and guys with weapons began to jump on them. Of course, they rushed off, and the bullets began to catch up with a whistle flying up to them. One of the opponents laughed and exclaimed that for lovers he already has several plans. He said that an attack of this level cannot harm him. The protagonist, smiling, inquiring, asked if he was really thinking that he could run away. One of them should immediately die, and he began to shoot with all his might at their comrade. The guy began to scream when he realized that the volleys of fire had already overtook him and he was under execution. The strongest among people killed a small fatty fish. The host asked what had just happened. Lin Chan made 14 shots in 2 seconds, killing small fat fish, an incredible operation from the deliverer, and this is already a professional level. But he does not know who they all know. He is very surprised by such an incredible speed, and this guy will be very difficult to win. Lin Cheng is very cool and he supports the blue team. One of the guys exclaimed that this deliverer was shooting very quickly. But God has seen such battles more times. But the comrade was still very afraid of the protagonist. Lin Chung was in the middle of the field with weapons in his hands and asked not to hide from the rest, since they are still alive. He explained that until one of them dies, no one could take the prize. If he wants him to sleep and fall under the fire, it seems Lin Chan knew that he could not cope with him alone. Unfortunately, this tactic is a little stupid. He is still alive and he will have to face other players. While he is going with them, he will kill his teammates and aimed at them. Xia could not understand what the master was going to do and do not need to go help him. Then the partner asked if she could dodge the bullets. Therefore, they do not know how to help Lin Chan from shelter. The enemy suggested at first to surround the W Spirit and Lin Chan. Then, it would be possible to share the prize. The guys agreed and decided to immediately kill the protagonist, approaching him with a weapon. The comrades noticed from the roof that their masters were surrounded from the roof and decided to kill them. The enemy aimed and exclaimed that it was time to die their team, and the main character, first of all, he pressed the trigger and the shots flew towards the girl and her partner. The guy killed a four-eyed evil spirit and Zia. The presenter exclaimed that he had a talented manage and killed 2 people at once. Now Lin Cheng is left alone, and God, the king of the game, and the position of the blue team is simply terrible. The host invited the guys to look at the rest of the players. But what happened because the frame only now switched to Lin Chan? The main character held the weapon in his hands and directed him towards his opponents. He began to press the trigger and the enemies began to fall one after another to the ground. 18 shots have just happened in just 2 seconds. This is one more shot than God. Just when he killed his partners of the protagonist, Lin Cheng actually killed all outsiders. Now in the total amount he has 30 murders. The audience was simply shocked. The girl exclaimed that she should be sleeping and asked to pinch her. In this match, Lin Cheng won, and the spirit could not cope with him. This is very magical, and he is not just a deliverer, he is a real god. The spirit lay on the floor and talked about that with sadness in his eyes, that it was simply impossible. Finally, this exciting moment came in which the winner will decide. They decided to see what these 2 players would do. The enemy decided to demonstrate to the main character the cunning way that he will kill him. Well, what happens to the spirit? He shoots a few ordinary bursts. He shot abruptly around the corner, and who would have thought that God would guess the moment and fly out around the corner with an attack? He instantly released a few bullets. This is a powerful, accurate shooting of which only the real master owns. The deliverer is about to die, but Lin Cheng, dodging the bullet, took out his weapon and aimed from the other side. He very quickly turned out to be around the corner, and the bullets were already flying towards the enemy. He did not expect this, and was wounded by his opponent. He was defeated by an ordinary amateur. The strongest among people kills God. We decided to wish happiness and prosperity to today's winner, the strongest among people. The host declared the victorious of the today's divine front of the firearms, the blue team. They were shown a brilliant game, quick shots in the head, and of course 31 murders. The guy was shocked by the deliverer defeated the spirit. Even such a cunning trick did not help. Lin Cheng, a ruthless man. To dodge the bullets, he used a mock step, and it is very difficult to perform it, so few people use it. It should be the most amazing champion in history. Miss Shi ran to the master and exclaimed that she was ready to kiss him. Their comrade could not believe in this because their team really won. Another player approached them and called this game wonderful. He invited the protagonist to their team to win the next world championship. The guys only discussed this match. One of them said that Lin Cheng belongs to their Chinese team and why he surrendered to foreigners. Lin Chung refused and explained this by the fact that he would prefer and continue to engage in food delivery. After all, the system will not work if it stops doing delivery. And it has great potential desire for fame and benefits from a happy envelope. The people around decided that this guy had a bad thing with the brains, because how much can be earned in e-sports? He at least knows how many people dream of such a sentence. The food delivery was in the first place. Now they will give them to the champion. Zhang broke the TV screen with a huge bat. He exclaimed that this man was very infuriated by him. Xia could not understand what happened to the young master. Lin Cheng is quite interesting, and why the young Mr. Zhang is angry. Zhang told the main character so that he could have fun so far. Soon he will do so that he can never laugh again. Being very angry, he turned around, and sighing angrily began to approach the door, without letting out the bit of his hands. Miss Shi was very surprised by the anger of this man. The girl explained to her that he beat him in the club Whitebirds, so he was sitting at home and was treated. If this guy dared to hit Zhang, then they even admire him. She still listens to audio and video with his voice on the phone. Isn't this Lin Cheng in second place in the news about the mysterious guy? Fortunately, Zhang did not see it otherwise. He was defeated the whole house. Things were gaining interesting turns. This Lin Cheng man, famous for several murders in the game, saved an elderly man with an attack, won the championship of the Divine Front with a firearm, a mysterious man near the hotel. Where did this deliverer named Lin Cheng come from, and how many surprises he will give him? The whole internet will learn about him. The guy began to call his older brother and asked to help him to teach one person and preferably to death. In response, the man said that this was a trifling matter and he would help him. Although he is a simple deliverer, he is very cunning. The man promised that he would cope. Ordinary people are enough to face that person to end their normal life. Xia and the evil spirit did not want a cash prize, but only wanted a golden cup. Indeed, the world of rich people is so boring. In front of the main character was a suitcase with 660,000. Even if he will work 20 years before half a target still does not work so much. Lin Chung told the system that for him, this is really an opportunity to change his fate. The system congratulated the owner on the fact that he earned a lot of good reviews, and the second level of powers was unlocked. After the transition to a new level, previously used skills will turn into constant. You need to perform even more missions to get even more skills and become stronger. The system explained that the higher the level, the better the reward up to the technology of creating wormholes and weapons against matter. Lin Cheng replied that he had underestimated the system, and she really has it. This is much superior to the most developed technologies on Earth, and it can also change the fate of all mankind. But his current power is not enough to cope with such terrible instruments, and they will cause a lot of troubles and a threat to life. The system said that now it can use an expanded lottery and there is a chance to get legendary valuable skills. Lin Cheng asked for permission to try right now. The system said that fortune was on his side and he received a blue card for the first draw. The boy asked to remove this blue card so far as he did not see any sense in her. Card skills are already in their backup skills, and, if desired, they can be used in the next task. The phone suddenly gave a signal. Notification of the delivery of Gugu. He has one new order, and the customer is Mr. Zhao. Now antique stores are used. On the street, they began to find out and say that this case of the internet is a celebrity of hot news. The girl went up to him and exclaimed that he was a champion that defeated the spirit. She asked him an autograph. The main character agreed and left his autograph to others. The girls thanked him and said that they would always root for him. They were very happy for this autograph. Here it is, how to be famous. People everywhere will pay attention everywhere wherever you go, and this is quite cool. Lin Chung arrived at his destination, and opening the door, told Mr. Zhang that his order had arrived. But before he had time to go inside as the guy hit him with all his might with the elbow in his stomach. But Lin Chung immediately beat off the blow, and the guy fell to his knees, asked what he had done. This is one of the works of calligraphy and painting Huan Tinjian, and he ruined it. A man appeared on the threshold and asked what happened. He noticed that it was too noisy here. The guy told the owner Zhang that this deliverer ruined the work of calligraphy and the painting that he prepared for sending. The main character explained that he himself crashed into him, and this is obvious. In his opinion, he simply wants to refuse compensation. The guy continued to scream that this work costs 4 million, and it was already ordered by one important large figure. If he pays compensation, then they will not go to the police station and the choice is for him. Lin Chung replied that he had no money. The guy realized that the plan of Zhang is really good because only to look at this rogue that could not even compensate for the damage. Let him wait a little more and be in prison. Lin Chung said that since the work has become dirty, He could restore it. The guys were immediately surprised, and the guy exclaimed that this is one of the genuine works. The old man supported the guy and added that it was simply impossible. Lin Chung began to restore calligraphy. The old man advised not to waste strength in vain that some food deliverer could do. The boy asked, in this case, just wipe his eyes and wait? He just recently received the ability to fully recover, and who knew that he would need this ability? The owner's consciousness to go into the past and spiritually contact the author of the work in order to ensure the best restoration. The owner took possession of this skill and can use it at any time. The guy went to the main character and asked what he froze there. If he is corrected, then he calls him to the police station. Lin Chung turned to him and asked not to interfere, but to bring him a kettle of hot water. The guy was surprised at how a person could change evenly a completely different character. The old man asked if he was crazy, and how boiling water can restore ancient painting. Lin Cheng replied that if they did not see this method, this does not mean that he is useless and the owner of Zhao to expand his horizons today. The man replied that his technique was too rude and she would spoil the scroll even more. It is just terrible to treat a work of art. Lin Chung asked the man just to wait 4 hours, and they will have an untouched work. They noticed a very arrogant tone of this guy. The man laughed maliciously to himself in anticipation that he would put himself up with an idiot, and then he would grab him and send him to the police station. But 4 hours passed and the system made itself felt. She announced improving vision and increasing stability. Finally, the spots almost disappeared and the next equally important point write everything again. The guy told his owner surprised that this guy seems to be able to restore the works of calligraphy and painting. He has such a firm arm as a master who is repairing for several decades. The old man replied that there is one place that he still could not restore. The old man knew that this scroll was already previously restored, but an error was made in the proportion of a kvass solution and glue, and this would directly affect the result. The protagonist was already finishing his work. He drove a brush along the canvas with a smile on his face. The old man was very surprised, as the energy of this person somehow changed quickly. Have they ever seen such a deliverer? There was a feeling that he saw Huan Tinjiang alive, and it was just a miracle. Before he had time to show his work, as the old man asked if he calls it a correction. Without special tools and proper knowledge, he thought he would write several hieroglyphs and will be able to deceive him. A girl appeared on the threshold and asked the owner Zhang whether the work was fixed. She explained that her grandfather asked her to pick him up. The man exclaimed that Miss Lin had entered just in time, and he was to blame, and he was asking for forgiveness. It was restored and wanted to deliver to her today. But when his employee came out of here, he was shot down by the deliverer and the work stained. Miss Lin began to scream and say that this is a favorite work of calligraphy and painting by her grandfather, and he will definitely be in a rage. The protagonist explained that he had already restored the work, and she could now make sure of this. Miss Lin asked if she wanted her to believe in it. The guy standing nearby said that he insisted on repairs and did not allow himself to stop. The old man added that he decided that if he writes by hand a few large hieroglyphs, then it would be normal, but this finally ruined the work. The girl replied that she would call her grandfather now, and all of them lies responsible for this. She spoke on the phone with her grandfather, and he asked to bring them both to him. Miss Lin called the owner of Zhao and the deliverer who arranged a membrane and explained that her grandfather was asking them to come to him. Before us rises the house of Lin. The main character noted that this person is very rich, and it is not surprising that the owner of Zhao was so frightened. Miss Lin went into the room and told her grandfather that they had already arrived. Grandfather asked to go faster as he wants to look at the brave man who ruined his thing. The boy had already passed into the room where the owner was waiting for them. His gaze changed when he recognized the guy. The granddaughter asked if his grandfather knew him. Grandfather replied that this good man recently saved him and said that his name is Lin Cheng. His last name is the same as him. The granddaughter realized that he had saved her grandfather and asked her to excuse her for such behavior. Lin Chung told his grandfather that if he had a bad heart, then it is better for someone to accompany him next time. Grandfather replied that it was because he wanted to try to live like ordinary grandparents. Miss Lin explained that this is all because he left without telling anyone about it, and endured himself, and frightened her younger brother. The guy was very surprised and said that he ruined his work. Then the old man shouted at the guy and asked to stop daring. Lin Cheng, his savior, cannot be a spoiled work. And in general, if death in the root of this conflict, then he did not keep track of his thing. Lin Chung asked the old man to look at the work, explaining that he completely restored him. The old man was very surprised and asked, really, he knows how. The man intervened and said that it was just terrible, and he did not even have normal tools. An employee appeared in the room and asked to evaluate the quality of restoration. It was a master of the Rarity Club Gufone. He is one of the 3 leading appraisers of the national level. Lin Cheng, smiling, asked him to evaluate the work. It is necessary to check the degree of similarity of the strokes, as well as the smell of ink and color, and consider from all sides. Meanwhile, he was discussed by a man and said that even the master size upset. Even if Lin Cheng did not make additional mistakes, that is a place that he could not help but notice. The master exclaimed that this restoration technique is the perfect style and mood accurately repeat the original. He sighed because many masters of restoration cannot achieve the skill of this young man. The main character said that he is exaggerating, and now that guy has nothing to say. He asked the guy if he could now say why he wanted to substitute him, or rather who made him do it. He was immediately scared and replied that he did not understand what he was talking about. Is it not he stumbled upon an assistant and stained the work? Lin Cheng explained. Then his employee collided with him, and he had never met him before, and did not remember that he would be bolder. Now the old man realized what really happened, and asked the guy to say better the truth. Otherwise he knows his methods of education. The guy answered. Then this is all by chance, and apparently the owner Zhao does not know that the deliverer likes to shoot videos during work. The main character said that it was very bad to slander the other, but he apparently wants to prison and showed the phone. He approached this guy and exclaimed that it was a low act by calling him a garbage of offending girls. Lin Cheng squeezed his fist and told the guy that if they see him again, he was not a tenant, and he just talked about the video, of which is not. The main character asked not to forget to leave him a good review. The old man asked the protagonist not to worry, and promised to help him to figure it out as he has one idea. And then the next day came. Zhang was in the company of several girls. He exclaimed that today, everyone was treated so that no one would rob him from resentment. Not bad for the one who signed a large project with Lin. They have the opportunity to contact the family. Lin, even when the market itself is decomposed. The finances of his family are now safe. Suddenly a message came and his credit card was frozen. The guy immediately got angry when he noticed that his terminal was broken. He could not understand how she could be frozen. He began to experience another card, but it was also frozen, and his many credit cards too. Zhao was just shocked and did not know that there was simply no way to think. The old man asked if he could explain why he suddenly stopped his partnership with his family Zhang. There are rumors that he is trying to take revenge on the Zhang family, based on personal motives. He chooses his business partners looking at their strength and honesty. And Zhao not only maliciously tried to substitute the innocent courier, but also evaded taxes and had false bills. In addition, the courier of which they wanted to substitute saved him, so there were no personal insults, if he still has questions that they can discuss with his secretary. At the moment, the price of the family of Zhang has fallen to the level of closure, and it is on the verge of bankruptcy. Workers require salaries directly at the head of the company. He must say that this time Zhang was completely destroyed by its own owners. What is happening at all, and what other deliverer? What nonsense and what bankruptcy? This is the same delivery man who became popular thanks to participation in the Divine Front, with the firearm of which Lin Cheng is called. If he had not contacted him, if not for this, then he would not be in such a terrible situation. The most ordinary courier was able to influence such a large business project. Only rumors went that he saved the life of boss Lin Hai. How this Zhang dares to contact such a guy if he were his father. Then he would have chopped him well. The same guy is a deliverer, and what's the difference? Lin Cheng was already racing on a motorcycle along the highway. Before him was the most famous company for disassembling games in the country. Why is the atmosphere so intense here? Behind the monitor was a man who was very angry and was asked to try again. Tikalo time, and there was very little time left. He got angry and exclaimed that this bug was again. The release of the game will take place in 2 days, and if they do not have time to fix it before the company's reputation will go to the bottom. They will be the laughing stock of the gaming industry. And what to do now? The girl came up and said that she had already contacted them, and only a foreign company can solve this problem. But they asked for $10 million. The guys exclaimed, clutching at the head, that it was extortion. Each of them receives only a few $100,000 in the yuan. They spent so much strength and stuck, but not the time for stinginess if they do not pay. Then everything will fly to the bottom. The guy told the manager that he was not going to lie and only a random miracle would help here. They will not correct the error even if they have half a month. The system gave the owner a task from Song the Wound. It is necessary to correct the error related to the incorrect work of the game code, for which a rare skill and bonus of temporary skills will become constant. Lin Cheng thought that this mission is quite difficult to give such an unprecedented reward for her. although this skill does not make it strong. But in some circumstances it can be very helpful. The guy went into the office and exclaimed that they were already working for more than 10 hours, and he asked to eat them. The girl sat at the monitor and thought that the situation is very bad. She read news on the internet and noticed that there are a lot of negative news about them. Is it really the only solution to contact the company that she thinks about? The guy suggested at first to eat a little, and then continue all his affairs. The girl was very surprised when she saw in front of her the protagonist who handed her a sandwich. Lin Chung said that he did not know that she was a PR manager of the Polar Star. The girl replied that she did not expect that he would become a national internet celebrity. The employee approached Madame Main Yun and asked if he would be able to postpone the release date of the game. He can try a different way to fix the error. Main Yun said that the rage and expectation of gamers reached the limit. A reputation and trust in the Polar Star were put on the map. The guy shouted that they could not fix everything in 3 days. Main Yun said that she knows, but he is the best programmer in the country even if he cannot fix this bug. Then this is really an excessive task for them, so you need to call V. Even if they lose money, they should not let the players. Lin Cheng said this is a clearly logical mistake. The guy asked how he determined this. He determined in a few minutes what many of them would spend days and hundreds of attempts. The protagonist said that he made such a conclusion based on the code that relies on the analyses of compilation errors. Whether he will believe it or not. Simply put, he understood it. Looking at one of the points that he will show now, the guy was still more surprised and asked if he really understands all this. To himself, he thought that he understood the code as much as none of them could understand it in this world in the same genius. Main Yun said that now, when he determined the root of the problem, he may have at least some idea of her solution. Lin Chung said that it would be easy to fix this mistake. The employee asked if he could really help him. The guys decided that Boss Song and the manager lost their minds and they have all the hopes for this deliverer. Although it can be seen that he has a lot of skills, but he will be interested in whether this is enough. Boss Song asked the employees to shut up immediately, because if only they could see the problem a few minutes after watching the program compilation for the error of the program code, then he would also consult with them. He turned to the main character and said that since he said that he could help find a solution to the problem of the game code, he asks him to tell about this in more detail. Meanwhile, before us, the server room of the company V, employees sat at the monitors of their computers. One of them laughed sarcastically, looking at the monitor. He decided that it was too early to relax with the Polar Star, and all the fun is still ahead. Lin Chung said that the fifth Achilles in this game is that the best equipment that is available at present does not allow it to manage it, but at the same time does not allow the game to optimize the game. Boss Song replied that he was absolutely right, and no one could write such a perfect algorithm. Lin Chung decided to try to rectify the situation. The guys realized that the guy really came up with something, but whether he could do it, does it seem strange that the deliverer is understanding programming? One of the guys replied that this is a nonsense, and the deliverer could solve the problem with which they stuck for 2 weeks. Employees could not understand what happened, and their computers suddenly infected the virus. Their system was hacked and not activated. Main Yun greeted the director of the company. They asked her to be going to come to them for help since they see that the date of publication of the game on their site has not changed. The girl replied that this money was needed in installments, but the man said that they spent wasting time for the first time, so they would have to increase the fee by 50%. Main Yun was very surprised at this amount and is not worth a maximum of $15 million. The girl lowered her gaze and sadly replied that it was, and she would think about it. The man exclaimed that time does not wait, and after today the price may even increase. Now the internet is against them, and if they do not correct this mistake, the authority of their company will collapse, and they may even encounter bankruptcy. In addition, he has a solution, and she does not dare to disagree. Main Yun asked him really the only one who could correct this. The guys all crowded near the protagonist. They could not believe that he could have repulsed the hacker so quickly. The boss was surprised why he knows all this code separately. But when he does not understand what is written there, he is really a real genius, and that he still knows about security. Lin Cheng replied that not so many, but he could track several hackers. But he suspects that hacking is somehow connected with the company B, which requires them to pay high fees and time is perfect. It is true or not whether they will find out right now. Main Yun went to the boy and asked was not the address of that company. It seems they really use such vile, miserable methods for the sake of money. Lin Chung replied that he had made a trap to catch all hacker attacks and return the game to its original state. He is afraid that their data will now be disclosed. The company's employees just felt a breakdown. One of them came running to Mr. Childs and exclaimed that their trouble and the system of their companies was suddenly subjected to an unknown hacker attack, and the data was lost. Mr. gave the team everyone to do this right now. The boss said, looking at the protagonist, that this was just a great job. He will ask people from the legal department to deal with this case later, so that they no longer contact them. They must destroy their reputation. Lin Chung replied that the system error is fixed, and now the game is ready for testing. Boss Song was very surprised at how quickly everything was optimized, and probably he was sleeping. Main Yun also considered that this was all a dream, and whether Lin Cheng is generally... The guys began with admiration for lifting their hands up and saying that everything worked. They began to apologize to the main character because they should not have doubted him. They asked to close the doors to leave this guy here, and many asked for his students. He must remain and save their hair from gray hair. Maybe he does not have enough people, and what he thinks of them as his employees. Main Yun ran to the boy and, hugging him, thanked for salvation. Lin Chung blushed a little and looked in the mirror. He thought that Main Yun liked. The girl said, referring to the main character, that he saved her so many times, and she always wanted to tell him something. Before she had time to finish herself, the phone rang right at such a moment and the boy started to answer the call. Lin Cheng thought she could not call him in order to admit. If so, then he must probably reciprocate. But whether it is necessary to meet her parents after they begin to meet, and he does not know what is usually given at the first meeting. Main Yun asked the protagonist to pretend to be her boyfriend tonight. She asked if he could arrange a date blindly at her house. There was silence on the phone and she asked if he heard her a little blushing. Main Yun explained that she realized as if she asks too much and if he does not want everything, and she would understand. But Main Yun laughed and replied that pretending to be a guy is simple, and he thought that something happened, and he was the best in this matter, let him only provide it to him. But first he must deliver orders to the University of Beikai so they can meet there at 2 o'clock. The main character realized that one of the 3 delusions in life is what she likes him. Lin Chung, when he was on the territory of the university, realized that worthy reputations of the University of Beikai were really studying here. Miss Shi ran up to him and asked the master where he was looking. The boy replied that he was not looking at anywhere, simply looking for someone. Then she asked who he was looking for, and Lin Cheng asked whether he knew Zhou Xinya. He had to deliver an order to the basketball court, but he had not yet left. Miss Shi explained that they have a big game, and Zhou Blue captain of the team, and he is still on the site. The main character watched the guys play basketball, and the team captain was ahead of everyone. One of the guys was sitting on the floor and holding onto his leg. Zhang Wei apparently specially hit him on his leg. The guy spread his arms to the sides and asked if someone had seen it. The judge did not even whistle at that moment. Lin Chung appeared in the middle of the hall and exclaimed that he personally saw this. He explained that he specifically used the judicial zone to hit him. The guy asked where he had come from, where he got, and what was him to beat someone if he wins the match without it. The guys replied that Zhang Wei would hardly have done this, and the French team is so slow faster to find a new player to replace. Lin Chung went to the captain and greeted him to give him an order. He asked that he was a courier who claimed that he was omnipotent. He explained to the guy that their team had no replacement and asked to help him in the second half. The main character, lowering his gaze, apologized and said that he was not playing basketball very well. But the captain insisted, knowing that he was asking too much. But for 6 months they trained for this match. Because of his injury, the team will have to admit defeat, not to mention the shameful tactics that another team uses, and he does not like it. The captain explained that he trusts his intuition, and he is not just a courier and could bring them victory. Lin Cheng realized that he trusted him so only because he once met him. In this case, the client is a god, and if it is actually just an amateur game, he thinks he can try. Opponents said that their team could not even get a normal replacement. Do they think that some courier can change something? The guys laughed and said that it was even worse if they gave up right now. The difference was as much as 40 points. The enemy said that even if the older sister is rooting for him, he still leaves here in a minute. Lin Cheng decided that 4 minutes would be enough. The main character picked up the ball and was already near the grid, bouncing as high as possible. Opponents noticed that this guy was quite fast, and he had already threw the first ball into the basket. They could not understand who was happening at all, and it was simply amazing. Why his comrade allowed him to pick up the ball again. Lin Chung noted that he really underestimates the opponent, but it does not matter. The enemy approached him and said that he would no longer allow amateurs like him to use the situation. But before he had time to finish, as the main character again began to throw the ball. What else can an amateur as soon as threw the ball into the basket? Lin Cheng deftly dodged and approached the goal. He was already near the basket and threw the next ball. It was just an incredible sight. Miss Shi is watching from the side as the ball enters the basket, exclaimed that her master is the strongest. The second girl asked whose side she was and shouldn't she root for the software developer. The captain watched the game, exclaimed that for the first time, someone challenged the large and high Zhang Wei. He claimed that he was not very good in basketball, but his game is not at all like that. If the newcomer played, Lin Cheng made a penalty and scored 1 point. The enemy began to call his sister and asked how she could root for the team of rivals. The boy said that he first sees how a team of software developers takes a technical timeout. The girl replied that Zhang Wei player has passed a lot of training, and really this courier is also a secret player of the central bank. The man went to the player and asked how speed he competes with this lover. He needs to think about what his advantage. The others should monitor the courier, and the team can be left alone. They really do not give a damn about the rest of the French team, as the main character noted. But his teammates do not see the desire to win. It seems Lin Chan could now rely only on himself, and he was already surrounded by opponents. The boy ran back to the ring and tried to throw the ball, but the enemy said that he was unlikely to cope with his dead end. He tried to block the protagonist of the protagonist to throw the ball into the basket, but Lin Chung was very dexterous, and was already next to his goal running up to the basket. He managed to throw the ball in time, and the opponents were simply shocked by this turn of events. The ball hit the side of the basket, but immediately hit the center right and was scored again. Lin Chung made his way forward over and over again. Is he going to make dung with a final throw line? Not many players can do one, and can they really see it today? This guy is not just a courier. He is a god. When the enemy stood right in front of him to grab the ball, the protagonist deftly dodged. He went on the other side and turning his back to the basket began to throw the ball. He did this very deftly, hooking his hands on the basket and landing on the floor. He was able to turn around and go under the Zhang Wei block, and this is simply amazing. For the first time in the life, they saw such a trick. The captain exclaimed, turning to the courier, that he was ready to pay $1 million a year, even $10 million if he joined their team. He will even sponsor him in the national team. Miss Sia asked the master to move to the dark place, and she would give him a good gift. The boy asked her to wait a bit, already has some things to do, so he cannot go. The girl said that there is nothing wrong with making an affair with the student in exchange for Mahjong Monkey. Main Yun was next to the main character, and asked if they did not agree to go on a date blindly, and who is this girl next to him. She continued to ask the guy who she was when they sat down at the table. Lin Cheng explained that Meng Yun was his classmate from high school, and relatives force her to go on dates blindly, so she asked him to pretend her boyfriend to reject their proposal. And he, his student he met in the game, and she is a little naive and straightforward, so he asks not to be offended if her words seem rude. Main Yun could not understand which student would be so pressed against the teacher of his chest and pretend to be naive and pure. Xia hugged the master by the hand and said that they were not very similar to a couple in love. Main Yun laughed and replied that Miss Xia was really a little naive, and she looked like her original school sister. Lin Chung felt that the atmosphere around them was becoming more and more intense. And what is happening in the heads of these women? Xina told the master that she had just called her a primary school student, and whose side he is now. The main character scratched his head, and smiling replied that he was neutral. Lin Cheng is not very guessing, and does he understand what is happening at all? But it doesn't matter even for the better that the master does not understand anything, but when she will return, they will discuss everything. So decided by his student Miss Shi, Lin Chung told Main Yun that they finally got rid of his student. He asked if her date would begin to be blindly and suddenly saw a beautiful guy in front of him. The girls began to say that he is completely in their taste, and it looks so mature to them can approach him and pretend that they are familiar. Is this a car not worth about $4 million? The guy went into the room and went to Madame Main Yun. He introduced himself as Xu Lian and said that he looked live even better than in photographs. He glanced at the protagonist. Lin Chan thought was not the big investor who invested in business for a week. The guy asked the girl who was this, to what Main Yun replied that it was her boyfriend. Xu Lian asked the girl why she needed him. The girl explained, apologizing that she did not want to tell her family about her guy yet, and asked him to keep it a secret. Xu Lian asked the protagonist how he is doing his outfit not from the expensive. Lin Cheng replied that he could not compare with the daily investment estimates of the master in tens of millions of dollars. Then the guy asked if they were familiar with him. Lin Cheng replied that he was still following the financial situation from time to time, and they have a pretty good reputation. But looking at the Jiangchen project, he should be more careful with investing, since this is a project that will lead the Jiang family to bankruptcy. Xu Lian thought that this guy is some kind of big bump, and it was better not to spoil the relationship with him. He said that it seems Main Yun was forced to go on a date because of the family, and since they love each other, he will help them. Mr. Lin Cheng would like to talk to him in more detail about the project. The guy came from the company, and he had a new order for processing. Lin Cheng exclaimed, looking at his phone, that he forgot to turn off the notification of orders. Shui Lian was very surprised that her boyfriend is an ordinary courier. He said, turning to the girl, that he could be mistaken in something, but instead of having a relationship with him, she would be better with a poor courier. And this is just a disrespect for the family. The point is not at all that she does not want to talk about this family. She cannot dare to say this, and the one who understands people knows exactly what is better to choose. Lin Chan asked him to tune in against him, just when he earns what he earns a living. It turns out the gentleman is not as wise as the rumors say. Shui Liang went to Miss Men Yun and asked if she would change his mind about each other so well, and her appearance corresponds to his taste. If she does not interfere in his personal life after the wedding, he will think about allowing her to meet this master. Main Yun threw a sandwich in the face of this guy, smearing him according to physiognomy. She asked to leave her alone and never touch her again. Shui was naturally furious with this behavior of the young lady, and immediately expressed his discontent. The main character, in turn, called him to behave decently, since they are in a public place. However, Lian said that the guy has no right to read his notations. At that moment, the assistant called him and said that the company A decided to invest $1 billion in the Jiangchen project. Subsequently, Shu hastened to leave, but Lin admired the courage of Main. Yun noticed that he was taking an example from him, adding that he was always a fair person and was not afraid of influential personalities, and henceforth, she will not endure such an attitude from anyone. Suddenly, Main asked the young master to help her in choosing a gift for her grandfather, and after a certain time, they went to the store, where they chose an old man of a beautiful little thing. Lin also offered to lead Yun on a motorcycle, because due to traffic jams on the roads, she could be late for name day. The girl agreed and once again thanked for the help. Chung said that friends should always help each other. The young lady grabbed the guy tightly, and they rushed into the distance on the way. Lin noticed that suddenly, Main was quiet and asked if she had frozen. The girl replied that everything was in order, but she herself caught herself thinking about how she did not want to part with him. A few minutes later, they finally arrived at the place. Yun again expressed the words of gratitude to the teenager, after which Main extremely reluctantly headed towards the institution where Shu was waiting for her. The girl was surprised at this meeting and asked him how Liang was here, because he was not invited to the holiday. The guy replied that as an important family partner, he has no right to skip such an event. Sui then began to talk about the courier with whom, according to him, Yun was close. A moment later, grandfather came up to them and urged them to shut up immediately. The granddaughter tried to convince the old man that Lian was lying and completely does not understand what he was talking about. However, grandfather began to report her for spending time with some kind of food and offended Mr. Sui. Suddenly, the system proposed to Chan a task where it was necessary to prove the meanness of the lawn. Of course, the guy did not miss this chance. The main character immediately approached the old man and said that he wanted to tell him the truth. After all, he looked after his granddaughter for a long time, and only now she agreed to give him a chance. And today he volunteered to give her a lift, as there were numerous traffic jams on the roads. After that, the young master exchanged a certain unique medicine at the system, which he immediately gave to his grandfather. But the old man was quite skeptical of this surprise, because he did not believe in a miraculous drink. Sui in turn decided not to hesitate and give his grandfather his gift. However, he did not like the old man, because the figurine was full of red and green flowers, which subsequently led to sad consequences, and grandfather literally began to suffocate from aspiration. Without thinking twice, he drank a drink previously donated to him. Lian believed that the old man would now be worse. In this connection, Shui instantly pulled out a bottle from his grandfather and threw it towards Chan. Then Yun called for an ambulance, since the old man was only worse. But after a couple of seconds, grandfather unexpectedly stated that his heart did not hurt and everything was in order. The system notified the owner that this medicine increases health by 30%. The head of the family immediately began to be interested in the courier, where he got such a drug, because he is very expensive. Then he asked to remove the gift of Liang because he was very annoying. Shu realized that Main deceived him. Then Lion offered the old man an autograph of Van Iji. His grandfather instantly rejoiced and said that he always wanted to meet him. Chan, in turn, turned to the system with the question of whether his ability to correct objects can be his ability to correct. The program answered positively. As a result, Lin began to pour boiling water on the donated jewelry of Lane. Everyone was in shock. Su himself shouted in furious that a guy could ruin a gift for $8 million. Meanwhile, boiling water began to corrode the defective figurine, and the young man said that it was a fake. After that, Chung struck a lighter and burned this decoration, which began to melt. The old man understood everything, in connection with which he said that he clearly underestimated the delivery of food and asked him for forgiveness. Then, he completely invited him to become the general director of the company, so that Lin proves his intentions in relation to men. Thus, the task of the protagonist was greatly facilitated, because his grandfather was positively tuned to the guy. Sui, in turn, tried to rectify the situation and was in every possible way to get to the old man, saying that he did not want to deceive him. However, Chung was able to get ahead of the events here, saying that he was even lying now. As proof, Lin presented the fraud of the lawn, where he tried to force customers to invest in the project, and then reduce the shares. But even in such a situation, he managed to save his corporation, because Shu hired people to change their reviews. Naturally embittered, Lian began to deny and say that Chung intentionally wants to denigrate his reputation. Lin continued his extremely convincing monologue to expose the businessman, and presented the old man with the steamed ornament of Shuya. Having stated that he wants to enlist his grandfather's support in order to promote his fakes, suddenly Liang said that only 3 copies sold such ornaments. Grandfather finally realized what kind of man he was. Yun at that time stood aside and received true pleasure from what was happening. The head of the main family was furious and asked Zuya how he dared to do so with him. Liang immediately tried to defuse the situation. Subsequently, he asked the waitress to turn on the music. Lena's song suddenly sounded from the columns. A brutal businessman noted that Chung clearly bribed the staff so that they would include his work. Suddenly appearing, Lin said that she asked for this song. Then she asked for an autograph from a young talent. The guy, of course, recognized her and was surprised. The old man instantly interrupted their cute conversation and once again apologized to the teenager. Dream unexpectedly stated that he created a corporation with Lin and he would receive hundreds of millions a month. Lao, in turn, also joined the rest and said that he wanted to offer Chan a couple of companies for entertainment. The young master could not even think about what his task would lead to because now everyone wants to help him. In fact, Lin did not pursue the goal of becoming popular on the internet. He just wanted to be with Yun. Naturally, grandfather was glad for the choice of his granddaughter and noted that Chen is a really good person. After some time, the guy hurried to the exit. Main thanked him for his help, but Lin said that when she finds her chosen one, he was ready to play the role of a bad guy, but Yun was against it. Soon, the young man left and asked the girl only about one thing: to put good grades to couriers, because it was not an easy job. Main suddenly shouted after him that she dreamed of such as he, but Chan did not hear her and asked. The girl was fastened and did not dare to repeat what was said, so she just wished him good luck. After a certain time, Sui could not calm down after his defeat. He remembered the moment when Zhang was suffering another failure, and the SVD project was supposed to turn into his hands. Lion perfectly understood that he was obliged by any means to get this project. At the same time, the businessman realized that at the moment, Chan was enlisted by the support of rather influential people. Thus, he remained only one person who could help throw off Lena from the top. Meanwhile, Zhang was kicked out of the next work because on his first day, he already managed to give the customers. Zhui became a witness to Zhang's shameful dismissal and realized this is his chance to lure the guy to his side. In this connection, Liang rushed for a young man and pretended to accidentally met him in the park, starting to declare that it hurts him to look at the fall of Zhang and he sincerely wants to help him. However, Zhang did not know Suya for the first day and said that he would not lure him with deception. Understanding that the guy was smarter, Liang took another tactic and asked if he really likes working as a dishwasher. After all, if it were not Chan, then his family, like him, would not go bankrupt and lived for his own pleasure. Suddenly, Zhang said that Lin seemed to have some magical abilities, and he does not know how to defeat him. Shuai immediately mentioned grandfather Zhang, and noticed that the old man would not allow his grandson to be humiliated but the young man replied that he had been crazy, and his family had nothing more to do with him. Meanwhile, the main character received a call from the boss, who slightly surprised him, since the boss called on the internet star to go to the beach in a couple of days in order to relax well. At the same time, he kindly provided the guy for 3 days of paid leave and a bonus of $10,000. On the internet, the news instantly appeared that young talent would come to the event. Naturally, Sewer could not miss the opportunity to see his beloved. A few days later, a celebration began on the beach, which of course came Lin. Suddenly, the young master saw Sia running towards him and was simply shocked by her appearance. A moment later, Yoon also ran up to him. The girl asked what he was doing here. Naturally, this event could not miss the journalists who literally overwhelmed Suer. After all, the company GU Takave first collaborated with the main game corporation. Yoon deliberately set up everything in such a way as not to give the opportunity to talk with Chan, and asked him to draw up a company. But at that moment, the unknown female voice suddenly called out the protagonist. The girl named her name Rosa, and said that he has long been his devoted fan. Then she introduced her friend Si Yao to the young master, who at the same moment was shy. The girl also asked her idol to join them to participate in the event. But Xia and Yoon instantly stated that Chen should be in their team. Thus, the situation was heated to the limit, and the young ladies began to actively sort things out among themselves. However, at that time, the head of Lena suddenly appeared and called him to follow him. He also asked the girls to go about his business, and not to interfere with the internet star prepared. After a couple of minutes, the guy went on stage, where most people supported him. Even the male half of the audience admired the teenager, and everyone began to shout his name. The boss, meanwhile, thanked all those present for the support, because their company reached incredible heights. Soon, finally, a competition began, where two people formed one team with the same number. The essence of the competition was to deliver an order for a cruise ship, which was 500 meters from the beach. The teams had to move on cycling in order to subsequently remove the flag on a yacht. The boss also called on Chan to win, since in case of victory, he will acquire 5% of the company's shares. The system immediately gave Lena a task where the winning in the tournament will bring him an additional 100 points. Naturally, the guy agreed to take part in the competition and pulled out a number with the number 11. Suer, in turn, lowered her hand into the box and literally prayed to the heaven that she had the number of 11. Main was in the same position and sincerely hoped to be in the same team with Chan. However, the girlfriend of Rosa named Shi Yao pulled this figure, but the girl was not particularly glad of this. Yoon and Jia, in turn, pulled out the numbers with the number 8, which could not but enrage them. The event suddenly appeared Jiang, who acted as an employee of the tournament organization. Jiang deliberately brought the cycling, Chat Lena into a malfunction, believing that Chan did not stay long. Soon, all the participants in the competition sat on their cycling and prepared for the start. Naturally, most viewers, as before, supported the protagonist. The main and Suer team was very lagging behind the rest, and Yoon complained about Xia. Meanwhile, Bo and Wei from the Donian district were leading in the race. It seemed not to catch up with them. The young master and Zhang were only in third place, and moved extremely slowly. Suddenly, Si asked Chan, because she clearly delayed him. But Lin said, "The main thing is participation, not a victory." Watching what was happening, the boss realized that it was a bad idea to make a team of 2 people. But suddenly the guy added in speed and caught up with the leading team, which was actively reported by the arrived reporters, which, as it turned out, called Shu so that the whole world would watch Chan's crushing failure. Zhang contacted Lian and said that he had added drugs to the leaders of the competition, but he has another surprise. The struggle, meanwhile, passed into the final phase, since less than 100 meters remained before the cruise ship. Si Yao said sadly that they definitely could not win in this competition, but Lin convinced her of the opposite, and exchanged glasses for the ability to accelerate in the system. Thus, they overcame a huge distance on the water in a matter of seconds. The dumbfounded Shui and Jiang were simply shocked by such a result. The audience started even more and continued to support its idol. At this time, Chan absolutely calmly and without obstacles overtook the leading team. Yao, in turn, realized Lin hypocrite, because not so long ago he said that the main thing is not a victory, but participation. Lion immediately ordered Zhang to take extreme measures, and Zhang pressed the button. A moment later, Saiken Chensin sparkled with electric discharges. As a result, they and Si turned upside down and were underwater, experiencing terrible pain. None of the participants even thought about helping them. Lena's body was paralyzed, and he could not move. Thus, they slowly walked to the bottom. The audience was silent at the moment, not understanding what happened. The protagonist could not believe that his life ended so ridiculously, while Sui enjoyed what was happening. Chan asked the system whether it was possible to eliminate damage to the current. The program answered positively, and removed 300 points from it. After that, the restoration of the muscle tissue of Lena began, which had to again experience incredible pain. The rescue boat, in turn, was not very in a hurry to the victims. Everyone was concerned about this situation, and believed that they would no longer see their idol. Since more than a minute has passed, but no one sailed to the surface, Xia and men were horrified. Jiang was unbridledly rejoiced at the work done, and naively believed that Chan would not see anymore. Liang, in turn, also continued to rejoice and celebrate this event. But only a couple of minutes later, Lin suddenly surfaced to the surface. The audience was shocked. The competition commentator immediately reported that Chen actually survived. The joy of Zuya and Zhang abruptly changed to rage. They could not believe in the incredible resurrection of the guy. Lin at this time asked the system for a packet to restore muscles for his partner Yao. The young man himself instantly rushed towards the cruise ship to continue the race. At this moment, C suddenly sailed to the surface and could not understand what happened. However, she had another problem. The girl grabbed a cramp and she again fell under the water. The teenager understood that she had moved and most likely would not get out. In this connection, the young man immediately turned around and again rushed to the drowning Zhang. Yo was touched by his incredible act because he sacrificed a race for her. Chan, in turn, swam to her and held out his hand to grab on her. The commentator stated that Lin is a real man who is ready to abandon the game to save a person. But as soon as the guy took the girl, he once again rushed towards the yacht, which was stupid enough because the leading team could not be overtaken. Zheng urged the young man to surrender, as she believed that they would not be able to get to the finish line first. But Chan said that he was ready to lose, but he would never give up as it is wrong. The audience in turn revived again and supported the protagonist. By that time, the young master managed to take 5th place and continued to go to the finish line. The participants were shocked by the incredible abilities of the guy who managed to catch up with them. Bo and Wei all the leads in the race and were absolutely confident in their victory. But the main question was whether the miracle from the internet star would occur again. After some time, the competition ended, and unfortunately Chan and Yao lost. But even at the same time, they managed to take 3rd place. Pressy Zhang ordered reporters to go about his business and tell everyone that Lin lost. Most people simply did not believe their eyes when they read Chan in the news about the failure of Chan. Others began to watch the broadcast to personally verify what happened. She and Man were furious because the media, as always, was pulled out of context without mentioning why he lost. Yo again apologized to the guy because he lost because of her. Besides her colleagues, journalists, as always, presented everything in a different light, adding that when she returned to the editor, he will definitely tell the director to save Chan's reputation. But some Spittans did not miss the opportunity to call the young man a loser, from which Sewer came up. But Yoon in a timely manner showed her a video from the competition. At the same time, the truthful news appeared about why Lin lost, also indicating that someone installed a stun gun on his cycling, and about how the guy saved his teammate who was drowning in the open sea. Thus, people took the side of Chan, in every possible way protecting him from hated personalities. Zhang and Shu were horrified by such a turn of events. But suddenly one in the competition of Bo and Wei became bad. The doctor arrived at them in a timely manner to provide them with medical care. The doctor stated that their hearts stopped from an overdose of stimulants. Naturally, journalists lit up this news. People were shocked and did not understand why it was doping. But since the team that took 2nd place also took these drugs, they were all deprived of all sorts of awards. Thus, Cheng and SI became the winners of the tournament and were awarded a cup, from which Liang and Zhang came into Robbie's, realizing that Lin once again beat them. The next day, Sui and Jiang went to his grandfather in prison. Xiao, in turn, said that the grandson disgraced him. Jiang literally began to beg for forgiveness. Then Long said that he would dispose that the Black Wolf personally deal with this teenager. However, the girl asked him to look at this elusive young man to find out what he was capable of. The old man agreed, and noticed that in this case the Black Wolf had at her disposal. After that, Xiao ordered Jiang and Shu to leave his possessions. The guys immediately went to the exit. Lian said that he now understands why Jiang did not want to contact his grandfather, because he is a really dangerous person. Jiang said that now Chan definitely would not live, because no one had yet coped with the Black Wolf. Meanwhile, Sai called the protagonist for dinner to at least somehow thank him. Lin agreed, but on the way he met a tearful girl who asked for help. Of course, the young man volunteered to help her and decided to call the police. But the girl refused, saying that he just needed to spend her home. The girl persuaded the teenager for a long time, using all her female tricks, which Chen could not ignore, and as a result went to her home. Suddenly, the stranger said that on his motorcycle they would get to her house faster. But Lin decided to take a walk, since he did not want someone to see him in the company from her. But as it turned out, they followed them. 2 cent journalists recorded everything that was happening on video cameras. Finally, bringing the girl to her house, she urged him to get to her to introduce her parents. However, Chung said that he had a date with another girl, and he could not go to her. But an unknown person knew how to persuade, and subsequently the teenager succumbed. Reporters calmly did their job and sent this video to the newsfeed, understanding that this time Lena does not get out, and soon everyone will find out about him another truth. In the meantime, Yao was waiting for a guy in a restaurant and decided to watch the news on the internet. Where did she see Chan went with a minor girl to a hotel for lovers? The main character, in turn, brought the girl to the door, but the indefatigable person again asked him to go home. The young master explained to her that a girlfriend was waiting for him, and he did not have time. However, the persistent stranger literally dragged him into the apartment. The teenager continued to rest. At a certain moment, the young lady abruptly pulled him over. Chan did not expect this. As a result, he simply fell upon her, and the girl made a frightened look. The dumbfounded Lin said that she should not pull him along, but suddenly she began to call for help, shouting that a bandit attacked her. After a couple of seconds, a police officer appeared on the threshold and said that now the guy would go to jail for a long time. Naturally, the news scattered throughout the city, and people began to crowd near the police station. Main and Suer and Zhang could not believe, because Chung was never such a person, and is not capable of like that. But after some time, Lena in handcuffs was taken out of the department and put in the car. Everyone was horrified by what was happening, realizing that he was facing an impressive term. On all channels, they reported that the young man threatens up to 10 years in a hacking with an attempt to crime. Of course, Zhang and Shui were satisfied with this result and thanked the Black Wolf for their help, which in turn ordered the servant to tell a large bear so that he would give Maltz a life imprisonment. At this time, the investigator asked Chan how many more girls suffered from his hands. Lin asked a counter-question. Who and why tuned everything in such a way as to put him in jail? The guy understood that someone too fierce wants to get rid of him, since he resorted to such methods. In this connection, he turned to the system for help, but the program could not help him anything. Then Chen urged the assistant to give him a list of all their skills, among which there were various sports, and even the ability to influence people. The policeman at that moment rolled up his sleeve and said that he would now knock out recognition from him. But suddenly Lin said that he is a very rich person, and now they are all confiscated. But if the investigator helps him, then it will become one of the most wealthy people in Jiangchen. After a certain time, the police officer went with the main character for evidence of his innocence. The investigator himself hastened to take away the young master. Lin said that he would at least receive $500,000, but after he will work even more and become a rather wealthy person. The policeman, in turn, promised to justify Chan, but in fact, he wanted to get a large amount of money and put him in jail. Suddenly, the young man urged him to stop. The investigator immediately braked, having stated that he knew where his house is, but Lin said he just needs to withdraw money from an ATM. As a result, a naive law enforcement officer released a teenager and even removed the handcuffs from him. Chung took advantage of the chance and called on the program to activate the video surveillance system, as well as a combat skill. After which the teenager turned to the investigator and repeated his question who ordered him to grab him. An angry policeman, in turn, urged him to immediately withdraw the money and silently transfer him to him. In response, Lin inflicted a lightning series of blows to him, and the investigator was on Earth. The dumbfounded guardian of the law could not understand why the Malay became so strong, but Chan continued to put pressure on him, forcing him to tell the truth. But the investigator still behaved aggressively, saying that the attack on the police officer will not be so easy for him. The teenager noticed that his patience is coming to an end, and if he tells everything, he would remain unharmed. Finally, he was influenced by the convincing words of the guy, and he agreed to tell about everything. But Lin decided, just in case, to connect him so that the law enforcement officer would not think to deceive. Then the officer said that the Black Wolf ordered him to carry out this operation. Chan asked where he was. A frightened policeman said in a stifled voice that he should be in an institution called Oasis. The young man calmly took his phone from him and began to look for an unknown Black Wolf. Then he told him that he specifically lured him to an ATM, where a video was conducted. Then the smart Lin called Yao's girlfriend and asked her about one favor, as the girl was a journalist. SE agreed to contact the bank and remove the video in order to illuminate what happened in the news tomorrow. Chen thanked her for his help and said that now he needed to leave one person and solve the problem. Soon, the main character changed back to the food deliverer and went to the Oasis Club. The young master told the guards at the entrance that he brought an order in the name of the Black Wolf, but they did not miss him. Having ordered him to leave an order from them and leave, Lena had no choice but to obey the thug. However, it seemed to them quite strange, because before the Black Wolf did not use such services. Going to the park, the young man changed clothes, understanding how stupid bodyguards were. Then it imperceptibly entered the nightclub to observe what is happening from the side. Meanwhile, the guard brought food to the Black Wolf, which he informed his patron. The surprised leader of the gang, in turn, said that he did not order any food, but still, he accepted the order, because he thought that the big bear could present him a gift. Thus, they all began to treat themselves with a barbecue with a drink. Zhang did not stop serving the Black Wolf and say what a great man he is, writing out the next compliments, because Zhang was always waved to the one who is stronger and more influential. Suddenly, he asked the wolf whether Lena would be imprisoned for a long time, hoping for the death penalty. Then Jiang asked who exactly the leader of the gang framed this method. The list was long. At some point, he was confused by the fact that Zhang was asking too many questions, but the guy was silent. However, Chan continued to interrogate the wolf's voice in Zhang's voice, which was incredible. The perplexed guy turned to find out who copies his voice. Subsequently, he saw Lena in front of him, who took advantage of the system to spoil Zhang's voice. The shocked Black Wolf, in turn, instantly commanded the accomplices to kill the malts. The armed gang of thugs immediately moved towards the young master. Shui noticed that the teenager is quite brave, but stupid, since he decided to go against them alone. But in just a few seconds, most of the bandits fell to the ground. The perplexing leader of the thugs did not initially understand what happened. However, after he realized that in fact this Lin brought them food and she was poisoned, the main character said that he had to buy a lot of laxatives in order to properly feed them. Jing nervously asked how much he added this drug to food, because the effect was too strong. The young master replied that this was a small dose for cows, because if he had poured more, then they would be dead. Zhang suddenly tried to attack Chan, but the guy inflicted a sharp blow to him and besieged the madman. The Black Wolf was shocked by such a turn and said that the baby would not say goodbye. In response, Lin said that he was treating them, since they deserve it. Then he said to the girl, who was pretending to be a schoolgirl that day, and set him up that she had an unpleasant conversation with the police. The wolf said violently that he had no evidence with his connections. He would simply destroy the malts. At this moment, Chung defiantly took out his phone from the lower portion of the rolls. Then he showed everyone that he writes their whole conversation on the recorder. The young man also noted that it remains only to wait for the testimony of a big bear. The leader of the thugs finally realized what was happening and in what situation he was. However, at this time, a laxative acted on them, and there was no more strength to restrain. The next day, SI saw on the news that the policemen entered into a conspiracy with the mafia, and they were arrested. Yao immediately called Lena. The girl asked why he did not act as a hero who caught them. Chung said that it was trifles and invited her to have dinner. She remained a mystery to her why this guy works as a courier, because he is capable of more. At that moment, the director of Diao unexpectedly called her. The young lady was surprised. As soon as Zhang went into his office, the leader began to praise her, because thanks to the report, the views increased. C, in turn, extremely modestly thanked the boss, who stated that there was another good news. After all, the place of the deputy director has long been free, and Yao is great for this position. The fat man smiled and asked what conditions the girl agreed to work, Zhang thought. But suddenly she refused this privilege. Diao was dumbfounded by such a turn of events. Subsequently, he got angry and literally overwhelmed the work of SY, saying that she will not work until he does everything. In fact, the fat man started something disgusting, and not just offered her this place. Meanwhile, the main character came in order for the intersection, which was rather strange. At that moment, Yao tried to hurry the workers, as she was late for an important meeting. Suddenly, a young master appeared on the horizon and said that he had brought their order. The girl was extremely surprised by the appearance of Chan and asked how he ended up here. Employees, in turn, silently took the food and began to refrain, saying that they could not work on an empty stomach. Lin was in shock, because they not only saw from their duties, but also ate at the expense of Zhang. C said that the boss chose such people, adding that she needs to be by the director by 2 hours and you can't be late. The system instantly issued a task to the guy so that he helped the girl get to the destination. In this connection, Lin set to work, while the Dharmos calmly continued to dine. At the same time, they began to mock the teenager, saying that the usual food deliverer could not cope with such work. Chan in every possible way ignored the company's employees and continued to change the rear wheel. His movements seemed to be honed. Yao did not expect the guy to understand the cars. The scent workers of the Diao also were at a loss, realizing that the Malay is really a master of their craft. After 3 minutes, Lin had already finished work. Naturally, C was grateful to him. After that, Chung asked where her meeting would take place. The young lady replied that she needed in a conference center. The teenager approximately calculated the path that was about 40 minutes. Yao realized that she was definitely late. However, the young man assured that he knew how to bring her in 20 minutes. Lin instantly got behind the wheel. The company's employees rushed to him and said that they did not finish the audit. But Chan assured that nothing would happen and the car would be safe and preserved. Then he sharply pressed the pedal and rushed forward. Zhang did not expect such driving skills from him. Employees in turn began to think how they should now justify before the Diao, because they had to detain C. On the way to the conference center, Lin said that someone specially blew the wheel, and in fact there was no nail in the tire. Yao of course realized that this director had set up everything, because he was going to dismiss her if she missed this meeting. Chan in turn said extremely confidently that her leader would be upset, as she will be in time for an interview. Meanwhile, Diao called his subordinate SY and asked if she reached the place. Sheng replied that someone had a wheel for her, and therefore had to linger. Then the director said that an interview with Tanga is very important. But if she misses him, he can slaughter his guilt at his house. In response, Yao simply hung up a phone. An angry boss did not expect such impudence from her. At that moment, the main character with SI got into another cork. Zhang thought that now they would definitely be late. However, the young master had his own plan, and he urged the girl to stay stronger. Then he drove into a narrow lane at a huge speed to reduce the path. The dumbfounded Yao asked him to return, but Chan continued to put pressure on the pedal. Sai, in turn, noticed that the road is too narrow and they could not drive here. Also ahead was a garbage tank in which the homeless cat rummaged, but Lin managed to go around them and move on. The people in the lane were frightened and immediately pressed against the wall, believing that the guy had gone crazy. The old man only shouted after God was merciful to them and removed their sinful souls. By that time, Chan managed to overcome the narrow lane and drove out onto the road. Thus, they got to the meeting place in just 20 minutes. But the performance did not end there, and Lin urged her to call his director. The self-confident Diao picked up the phone and began to say that she was clearly late. But instead of Sai, the head of the company heard Mr. Tan's voice and was shocked. "Dear businessman," in an orderly tone, he said that the manager stops his mockery over Jiang. In fact, Chan imitated the businessman's voice and finally dealt with the harassment of Diao. Yao was shocked that the teenager managed to pretend to be a Tan and influence the fat man. She thanked the guy and ran away to the meeting. Lin, in turn, left the car and went on orders. As it turned out, all this time, people of Xiao followed them and reported long about the situation. The old man ordered his thugs to deliver malts to him to turn his life into hell. After some time, the main character was hungry and decided to take a lunch break. But at that moment they called him. The young master noticed that Zhang was calling him. Chan calmly picked up the phone and said that he would no longer bother her today. But instead of her, a familiar voice sounded, who ordered him to arrive under the Chang Bridge, threatening with reprisal against Yao. Naturally, Lin went to the indicated place to save the girl. Long was already waiting for a teenager and noticed that the guy arrived in a timely manner. The young man asked who he was and why Zhang abducted at all, because they were not even familiar. Then Xiao said that the Malays humiliated his student of the Black Wolf and grandson of Jiang, so he is here. Cheng, in turn, asked what the conditions of the release of SI will be and what he needed. Suddenly, the old man put a knife to his neck and said that now Lin would see his revenge. The teenager instantly turned to the system for help, realizing that without special skills, he could not save the girl. A second later, several more people of Xiao got out of the car, and he said that the young man could not live. Suddenly, bodyguards showed him phones in which there were photographs of the related Jia and men. Long smiled and asked if he now understands what situation he was in. Embalued Chan asked in response what exactly he was achieving. Then the old man invited him to play a game called One Delivery, adding that every 10 minutes he will give him one task, and in the total amount of such missions 50. And if for 10 minutes the guy does not fulfill the order, then Xiao will begin to cut the girls. Then Long gave Lena the first task, and the teenager instantly sat on his motorcycle. Suddenly, one of the henchmen of Zhang asked what to do if Chen simply escaped. However, the old man was absolutely sure that the guy would not run away, because he considers himself a hero. Meanwhile, the young man saw that the order was on the other side of the city and realized he would not have enough 10 minutes. Naturally, the leader of the thugs intentionally arranged everything in such a way that Lin did not have time. After a certain time, the main character finally reached the customer. The young master literally flew off the motorcycle and ran towards the stranger, to whom he immediately handed the order and sped off in an unknown direction to the next point. The accomplice of Xiao, in turn, called the boss and said that the order was successfully delivered. The guard immediately handed it to his patron that Chen managed to come to the point in 9 minutes. The old man noticed that this would be a spectacular performance, and they are a little mocking him. Lin was furious, because the second order was even further than the previous one, but he could not do anything. In addition, he did not receive bonuses from the system for completing tasks, as these were missions from another person. The guy understood all the customers in conspiracy. At that moment, he noticed that he also had a pierced wheel. The program still decided to help Chan and asked if he wanted to teach them. But the young man refused, saying that he did not want to deal with ordinary performers. He needs to get to the top to eradicate evil. Subsequently, Lin threw his motorcycle and ran back towards the customer, which meanwhile met with his friend and called him to inform boss that they had pierced Sheena Chan, which, in the final result, the guy did. Then the protagonist rushed to their car. Lin jumped into the convertible and said that he would leave the keys in the car. Then he calmly left to the next point. Long's servants were shocked. The bandits ran after him, but the teenager easily managed to break away from them. On the way to order, the young man listened to not good wishes for such dangerous driving. People could not understand that the delivery of food is so profitable, since the courier travels to Ferrari. At that moment, his colleagues, the same food, crossed the road to him. They began to admire Chan, saying that they were all his fans and heard about him. After all, it is thanks to him that customers began to respect them. In this connection, the partners volunteered to help him, but Lin refused and said that he himself would cope. The couriers were at a loss, not understanding why their idol reacted so. But suddenly Chan returned and asked them about one extremely important request. Meanwhile, Xiao received true pleasure, holding Zhang connected. But the girl believed that the main character would have time and would surely save her from the bandits. Long only laughed and noticed that he had a sufficiently naive reporter. Then he showed her a card of orders and said that Lin would not have time to run the whole city in 20 minutes. Then he mockingly asked Yao, did she really believe that Chen knows how to fly? At that moment, his phone rang. Xiao was in anticipation of good news. However, a moment later, the head of the mafia came into fury and began to scream. The accomplice said that the Malay in some incredible way delivered the order in time. The brutal Long broke the phone and said that this was simply impossible. Then he smiled again and said that since Chen decided to play this game, he would satisfy him. At this time, the customer threw a bag into the garbage tank while he did not even look at him. The courier hiding in the bushes immediately called Lena and talked about what happened. The young master, in turn, thanked the foods of food for the assistance provided. Suddenly, he noticed that Xiao moved to another phone number. It was rather strange, but Chan did not attach any importance to this and called the couriers. It will spread throughout the city, pretending to be it. One of them noticed that they could only win a little time, but soon they will be exposed. The guy decided not to waste time and hit the road once again, thanking his assistants. Lin himself rushed to the computer club to find the location of Yun and Sewer. The only clue were 2 tablets with a video, and since there is no network under the bridge, you could connect to the station. In order to track after exactly where the Zhao hides girls, which subsequently Chen took up, and in just a few minutes the young man hacked the phone from which Long connected to the station. Soon, the teenager discovered the station itself, and finally began to search for Maine with Zia. What it took much more time and effort, but the guy did not lose hope. In the end result, Lin was still able to determine the exact location of the girls. Meanwhile, the assistants of the protagonist continued to deliver orders around the city. The indefatigable Long was angry, which could not understand how Chan managed to keep up everywhere. Having looked closely, Xiao saw that absolutely all orders were successfully delivered. Yao, in turn, was in shock, and also did not understand how he managed to do this. Then Zhang ordered the customers to check the food, because he could simply replace the contents of the package. As a result, it turned out that in almost all bags there were shells from shrimp. The angry Xiao from anger broke another phone and began to insult everyone. Then he went to C and said that he no longer intended to play with her, adding that at first he will kill her, and then he will end this boy once and for all. The old man began to strike a fragile girl and repeat that they all end. At that moment, one of the guards called him and said that the iron dog was caught by Lena. Long smiled and ordered him to immediately bring him to him to deal with the young man. Soon, Xiao called his student and said that from now on, the territory of the wolf belongs to him. The iron dog thanked his patron and noticed that for him the honor to serve him. In fact, it was another trick from Chan, which forced the head cutter to deceive Zhang. The bandit himself begged to spare him, saying that from now on, he would take the path of a good person. Naturally, the young master did not believe him and threw it out of the window, because such people do not change. At the same time, Lin finally freed his friends. Zhur immediately rushed to him in his arms. Cheng, in turn, tried to calm the girl, saying that everything was already over. She asked why the guy said that he was caught, because they could track his location. The young man replied that he was listening to Xiao's phone and decided to distract him, as the old man intended to kill C. After that, the teenager jumped into the car and called on the girls to turn to the police while he saves Yao. The worried girls wished him good luck and only looked at him, realizing what danger Lin was expelled. Suddenly, they unanimously stated that this is their beloved man, because he is strong and kind. At the same time, also a handsome man. Naturally, competition did not slow down. The police officer who arrived at the place became at a loss when he heard the dispute of the two girls, who continued to actively prove to each other who is more worthy of Chan. Long's minister at that time noticed that the iron dog is really cunning and therefore caught Lina. Xiao replied that this was his student and of course he is a smart person, after which he called on the guards will prepare. At the same time, there were still several armed thugs on the street. Zhang, as always, naively believed that this time his plan would definitely work and already anticipated the victory. Having smoked a cigar busily, the old man called the Iron Sioux and asked when he would bring malts. In response, Chung again simulated the voice of the servant of the head of the gang and said that Lin had escaped. The dumbfounded Xiao instantly sent 5 people to help the dog to catch up with the teenager. Long could not understand where this cunning boy came from, and why there was so much trouble because of him. 10 minutes later, he was informed that Chan ran towards the market. Zhang immediately ordered to block all the exits. The old man was at the limit and constantly insulted his subordinates, because they cannot catch a child with a crowd. But 10 minutes later he was again asked to send another 5 people, so that Lin would not have left. In this connection, the angry Xiao called one of the reliable people named Lao. He ordered Du to take 10 people with him and go to the aid of the Iron PSU. After a certain time, Lao arrived in place, but there was nobody. Then he called the dog, but he did not hear him, because the connection was instantly interrupted and the call was dropped. Suddenly appearing behind them, the guy said that he specially drowned out the signal in this alley, adding that since they are all here, there are too few people left with the old man to protect himself. In his hand, he twisted a basketball. The shocked Du asked, did the malleter pretended to be an iron dog, and all the calls came from him? The young master broke into a malicious smile and said that he was a confident person. Lao immediately ordered his armed thugs to kill an impudent teenager. But everything again went not according to plan, since Chen easily dealt with one of the bandits using a basketball, which rushed right into the head, as a result of which a member of the gang group collapsed to the ground. The rest froze in place. Lin asked if they were really scared of some kind of ball. Then he took advantage of the special skill of the system and rushed towards the thugs. At that moment, one of the gang members tried to attack the protagonist, but the guy dodged a blow. Then he again fixed the ball into the head of an armed bandit, who also took a horizontal position. Thus, the young master successfully knot all their attempts to harm him. No matter how hard the thugs tried, they didn't succeed, and they were simply beaten by Chan. Lin, in turn, did not cease to apply the most powerful blows with a basketball and scatter everyone around. The frightened Lao said that he had never seen someone to fight with a ball. Suddenly, the guy stopped and urged Du to answer his questions in order to stay alive. Shoja Xiao, stuttering, said that he would tell everything he would ask about. Then Chan asked where this Long came from and who actually stands behind him. Lao noticed that he would tell him the truth in return for life, but there should be guarantees. At this time, the head of the criminal group tried in vain to get through to Du, but his phone was outside the access zone. The old man decided to first deal with the girl. The guards instantly climbed into the car and prepared to cut the young lady. However, it was at this moment that the basketball ball pierced the car window and flew straight into the head of one of them. The other fell out of the back. The old man was shocked by what had happened. At the same time, Long could not understand how the basketball could break the car window. The 2 minions of Xiao immediately rushed to the ball and with great difficulty were able to raise it, saying that he weighs about 100 kilograms. Yo perfectly understood that it was Chan to save her. But looking around, she did not see the young man. Meanwhile, Zhang and the bandits came to the conclusion that they were shot from a special gun. But suddenly Lin nevertheless showed himself personally and called out a frightened old man. He also drove Lao with him, who began to tell all the crimes of his patron. Xia literally fell into fury, because he did not expect that Du would betray him. Chan suddenly hit Lao and said that the police would be in 10 minutes. During this time, he decided to reduce accounts with Zhang, because this is exactly what Xiao wanted so much. At that moment, the remaining thugs ran up to them, but the main character easily eliminated this threat. Realizing that he had no other choice, Long grabbed Sai and ordered Chan not to approach him. The young master noted that the mafia boss sank before kidnapping women. Zhang, in turn, put Yao in the car and stated that he would deal with the boy another time. Then the old man hurried to get into the car and ordered the driver to leave here. However, the car did not start. The smiling Lin took out the phone and said that he should not be angry with him, because he hacked the operating systems of the car, and now they can't escape. Then I decided to play a little, and intercepted transport management. As a result, the car rushed forward sharply. The driver could not influence the situation. Thus, Chung drove the car for several minutes and thereby exhausted the old man. Long ordered his servant to slow down, but the pedal did not work. Then Xiao shouted that his girlfriend was in the car and he could harm her. A moment later, the car turned sharply, and Lin remotely opened the back door. Sai fell out of the car, but the young master managed to catch a frightened girl, after which he peered her tape from her mouth and apologized that he had drawn her into this madness. In response, Zhang burst into tears and hugged her savior, saying that he was a real Superman. Meanwhile, Xiao asked the guy to stop chasing the car in a circle, as he felt ill. At the same moment, police officers arrived at the place and hurried to the leader of the mafia. The next day, Chan staged the award ceremony for Chan, because he alone repulsed the criminals. The chief proudly introduced the folk hero to the townspeople, who put Long in prison. The teenager came out from behind the scenes and waved his hand to the enthusiastic crowd. Although in fact he did not seek to become popular, unknown personalities at this time watched the ceremony and said that the young man was really capable. They decided for some more time to observe him and then invite to their team. Soon the ceremony ended, and the protagonist returned to routine work, traveling through the system orders. The program, in turn, unlocked the owner a secret task and various bonuses. However, during the failure of the mission, all the glasses and blessings earned by him were lost. But the self-confident Lin was ready for such tests. The young master began to rejoice excessively, and even forgot what was among the people who considered him crazy. The system, in turn, asked Chen to lean his palm against the reader to unlock the bonuses. After that, the teenager asked the program how soon a secret mission would come to him. A moment later, his phone rang, which was the same mysterious task that was connected with Xia. Sewer at that time was in nature with a famous blogger. Feng tried to light a fire, but he did not succeed. After all, before that he lost Flint, and the lighter leaked, which put him in an awkward situation in front of the girl. In parallel, a live broadcast was carried out from the phone, as they wanted to surprise the spectators with new content. But in the end result, everything went not according to plan, and the girl decided to order food. But she also did not succeed, because no one wanted to deliver food to the mountain. Dan noticed that this is not surprising, because they are located 30 kilometers from the city, but in just a couple of minutes, someone nevertheless took the order. Feng was dumbfounded by such news. Half an hour later, Sewer was dying of hunger, and the guy continued to incite the fire. And when he finally got as conceived with the help of friction of a stuck branch in a stump, the young master arrived with an order to the mountain, which was madly glad, and did not notice how she stepped on a piece of wood and broke her. Thus, she nullified Dan's efforts. Chung, in turn, noticed it would be better if the girl at first ordered food, and then went to the mountains. The extremely joyful Sewer immediately attacked her beloved savior. Then, with pleasure, I unpacked the contents of the bag and prepared to have a good bite. But Feng suddenly became furious and menacingly urged the courier to leave, as they are conducting a live broadcast. Xiao was indignant and said that he had no right to talk to her friend like that. Lin, in turn, smiled and decided to defuse the situation, because he needed to fulfill the mission, in connection with which Chun unexpectedly stated that he knew firsthand how to survive in the wild. In addition, he has the necessary skills for this. Feng was surprised. Suddenly, Sewer again rushed into the arms of the guy and asked all the audience to subscribe to her channel. Dan, in turn, said that some kind of food delivery will not be able to compete with him in survival in the wild. Xia also called on the protagonist not to enter the dispute with him, since Feng was engaged in this for many years. However, the young master was of a different opinion. Of course, the guy accepted this challenge. After that, Dan took the phone and read a few comments, where of course the audience wanted to see the show. Then the young man handed the phone to the girl and called on her a direct broadcast from his hands. Feng himself voiced the conditions of the bet, and if Chen loses, he will be forced to lean in front of him to the entire audience. Lin agreed, and stated that if he loses, he would refuse to broadcast. Then Dan called him to start with a rod fire with the help of improvised means. The teenager looked at the woods and agreed. After all, he perfectly understood that he had enough skills for this. The confident Feng began to breed a fire. The naive guy was looking forward to his victory and hoped that Sewer would soon conquer. The young mother, meanwhile, began to spread his shoes. Xia could not understand what he was doing. In this connection, she urged him as soon as possible to come up with a way to make fire, because he will lose. But confident Chan built a bow and stated that he had nowhere to rush and he has everything under control. The dumbfounded Dan was alert, because if the courier really can light a bonfire with the help of a bow, then he has problems. Lin, in turn, began to use the ancient method and concentrated as much as possible in practice. Feng caught himself thinking that if a young man is injured, he would get ahead of him and become even more popular. At the same time, Dan began to understand that in fact, Chung is not a profane and pretends to be a newcomer. And in just a few minutes, the protagonist managed to light a fire. The blogger was noticeably nervous and began to twist the stick even more diligent, but he did not succeed. Only after another couple of minutes, Feng was also able to dilute the bonfire. The joyful Sewer took what was happening on the phone and noticed that her friend coped with the task faster. Positive comments fell on her instantly because the audience recognized Lena in him, after which Chung said that the next point should be the construction of the shelter. Dan began to boast that he set a record for 8 minutes, and no one could beat him yet. Xia, in turn, again asked everyone to subscribe to her channel and put numerous likes.